Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of GRAPPL. I'm Benno.
I'm JP.
I'm Gareth.
And I'm Matty.
And a full set. We managed to corral Gareth back onto the main show, landed on our shows only a few hours ago. You haven't checked the news yet, Gareth. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. We'll fly through the show. Got on to, not to hold us up or talk about. We brought you on just to talk about All In, mate. We didn't get your belated thoughts from last week. That's still the primary news story in all. Remember All In? Like 6 months ago, it was great, wasn't it? When we were all there around Wembley, we had a great time. No, anyone? Fucking hell!
Anything happened? Have I missed out?
Very quiet, mate. JP... Everyone is good mates. The end. Especially these two lovable rogues behind me for video viewers.
JP said the famous last words today. It'll be a short one. Maybe not. It feels an age since we last recorded, but genuinely, yeah. Did you listen to the last week's show, Gareth? You should have it in your title on the YouTube videos. The Wheelman, Gareth Hodgson, Matty singing your praises.
Gareth, honestly,
I want to hear it from your side now, mate. I want to know what the truth of the matter was. Did you get your petrol money? Did you, did they chip in for any food on the way? Not Tim Hortons, obviously, for anyone listening to the pre-show. But...
I got my petrol money from Matty. I'll just.
Not saying how much, but he got some money, JP.
I'll just cash in hand as well. Right in his hand, right in the palm of your hand, Gareth.
Was it like being Matty's chauffeur for half a week, Gareth?
His wheelman.
It was good. He's got low. I was laughing because I haven't finished last week's show. I was wanting to finish it on the plane, but it hadn't downloaded properly, so I'd listened to half of it. But he was very glowing in his praise of me and my wheelman skills last week. But
Ryan Gosling, mate,
because of Matty's non-driving low expectations, he was talking about me doing these big turns and things like that. It was like, yeah, like a 3-point turn in a street, like like.
Benno, it's all right on the highway and on the motorways with cruise control and that. As I say, it's in these streets where he's just backing up, just manoeuvring it well. What a driver!
I'd have made it look a bit flashy. If that 3-point turn was going to be so impressive, like I'd have made it look more difficult or something like that, But hey, he was pleased.
I thought you were like driving the wrong way down the M1 and shit like that, like it was fucking Driver or you're Franklin in GTA 5, that kind of vibe.
But no, it was good. We had a good laugh, didn't we? It was
brilliant.
Playing the games along the way, playing our wrestling games and that.
The best game at the end, we were playing we took it basically from Davey and Braden, their setup, but it was we had to name a wrestler that I come up with that has a submission as a finisher. And we went on for ages, or as used it, and it was great. Way to Gareth, some names getting plucked out of thin air, wasn't he? Good.
There was some ropey finishers.
Yeah,
getting deemed to be a finisher on there. Like
Matty's making up ones Randy Orton did there. The Viper cutter. Yeah, that's one.
No, do you remember when Triple H started to use the sleeper for a couple of weeks? That got through in there.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. I think that was your line, wasn't it? He used it for 4 weeks in 2002 or something like that. I was like, come on.
But I loved it, Gareth. It was fucking great. It was great. So thank you again.
No, it was brilliant. It was like, I mean, you said the same in like return. It was good. It was good just to spend that amount of time with you, kind of thing. Just to we had a good laugh on the journey down. Had a couple of good nights out and things. I think it was the only thing I was saying to Matty it was a shame that like. It's funny, isn't it? Like for this big thing where the four of us are going to London and things, and then you've got that like you go to a couple of shows and you're doing our own show and things, and then I feel like I spent about 15 minutes with both of you two. Yeah, because there was just so much going on. And I like come away and in my head, I'm like, I'm getting a weekend with Benno and JP, and then I hardly saw you. Like it was
just have a weekend away. We'll have like a team building exercise. Where can we go?
We actually should, even just a night. We should just do it.
Paintballing out in the woods. I'm game. Yeah. I'm definitely game. The Lake
District. All come down by you, JP, because we all live local. We'll get it. Gareth can drive us, be the wheelman. Oh, actually, I forget Benno's the wheelman as well. I always forget you drive, Benno.
You can get back on the scooter. You can get on the back of my scooter, mate. I'll scoot you all down. It'll be fine.
Getting banned, those, mate, in Paris. They'll ban them soon enough. They have to.
I saw MJF.
You nearly killed yourself before on that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, that's why I didn't wear shorts on stage. But yeah, it's like you said though, Gareth. It was one of those weekends. Like I didn't see James here all that entire weekend. I knew Thompson was over. I'm gutted I didn't get to see him, but like he was in London for 2 days, so he wasn't going to bother with Rev Pro, was he? So you know, he was doing the actual touristy stuff. One of them. We'll do another one.
But I mean, it was mad though, because like the good thing is the amount of people we did see, like, and it was absolutely just like it was. I mean, obviously you talked about it last week, but that's just the best thing, like seeing our live show and just getting to, you know, all names that you see like on Twitter or in the chat and things like now, or people that you've like maybe had a crack with at one show ever or things like that. Just having everyone in that same place, and it was just like buzzing in there. I loved it. You just go around just having a little chat to loads of different people and introducing themselves and just being like, oh fucking hell yeah, that's you, kind of like, you know, sort of thing. And it was just such a brilliant vibe. I absolutely loved that. And even then, you know, at Rev Pro show and things like that, just random people just like saying like, you know, hello, how's it? Even getting a few thank yous for making the app from random people in Rev Pro who like had, you know, no idea from the podcast side of things and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool as well. It was just a brilliant weekend. I was just buzzing off. I've just been buzzing off it in my head all week in Greece there, like where I've had nothing to do, just like lying by the pool, just thinking about it. All these memories coming back of the weekends. Like what a great time, and good old Tone putting it in the calendar for next year. Yeah, I'll have to make sure everybody's all there together again next year. Make it an annual thing.
It's what we need. It's like I don't know, since the like I said last week, there was a point where like we were all just in that pub after Rev Pro, and it was like, say, Joe's over there, the Ogdens were over there, you know, I think Will was in the corner. It just felt like it was like, oh, we're back, you know what I mean? It took AEW to come over and run Wembley for it to happen, but you know, I know there was some people we didn't see. Obviously, Simon I didn't see until the night time at the karaoke and stuff like that. But yeah, it was you know, maybe we'll do the New Japan show at the Copper Box and I'll get back together. And I was going to say, quick plug I'll throw in. If you weren't there for the live show and you missed it like Simon, perfect timing, you can get the audio is now up. It's on the Patreon feed, but it's free for everyone. So if you just go to patreon.com/grapple, anybody can press play. Pretty sure you can do it on Spotify as well. That might be a little bit more complicated, but it's right there so you can live back through it. JP's listened to it back. I still haven't. Can't listen back to myself. Don't know what it is. Listen back to myself on air all the time. But on stage, there's just something about it. I just feel awkward listening back to myself. I get like really 3 minutes in, I just turn it off. Apparently it went well, I'm told, so that's good.
Can I just butt in and just say, like, you two, I thought you were fucking brilliant. I don't want to blow smoke up your ass like on here like too much, but honestly, like, I thought that, like, because you sort of there was the four of us in that back room before we went to put on stage, and we all knew we hadn't prepared a thing, proper at all, kind of thing. Yeah. So that could have gone anywhere. We were hungover and everything like that, you know, and we were just there like, right, let's go and do it, lads, kind of. And then like fucking Benno, you should be presenting on TV, mate. You're fucking what a pro! Like just the way you held all that together, and you just swore down. It was all bloody planned out and well written, and or something like that you'd followed and rehearsed. I thought you were fucking brilliant, and you know, like I said, I don't want to blow too much smoke, but like JP as well, I thought you were absolutely on fire. Like you're just you know, just there with you whipping these fucking one-liners out and your references and things like that. Like I felt like I hardly said a word up there because I was just like pissing myself, just as like just laughing along, kind of thing. Like and you know, like Matty knows what I think about how he did because I you know told him as well. But like honestly, if you haven't listened to it, like listen to it back, and big props to you too, because what a fucking great job you did. Brilliant, really brilliant.
Team effort, no, but thank you. Like I was, if for what I've done, I'm definitely not going to go back and listen to it now. Now that you've said that, I'm going to try I never want to hear it back now. Apparently, it was great that we got that. I need Gareth's take on it and Gareth's approval, so I'll take that. Like, yeah, everyone there enjoyed it. The people who listened to the audio enjoyed it, but that means a lot. Like, and although there was one person there who will remain nameless who did tell me, like, we got a bit of feedback in person that apparently the podcast was shit until Matty joined, and it's good again. So that was good to hear from. So yeah. Throw one at you, Matty. You brought us back.
I haven't paid no one for that either. Thank you, whoever that was.
Like a dagger through my heart, that one.
Sorry.
You know-
Yeah, you're being nice, and I'm like, yeah, it's been shit with you on, mate. Yeah.
You're the reason I'm here, mate. You're the reason I'm here.
No, it was a team effort, and yeah, like we said last time, Davey and Braden definitely did the Lord's work, keeping the day together as well. I know we praised them last week, but they deserve all that praise that we gave them. But yeah, if you did miss out, if that's not a hard sell enough, definitely go back and listen to it. And I'm sure we'll do one again, won't we? We'll figure out at another time at some point to do one. But on the what's Gareth laughing at him?
Sorry, I'm just laughing at I'm laughing at Jordan's comment. Just referencing one of JP's jokes on the night, which was outstanding.
When does the worlds of wrestling and Bobby Sands and the lads in H-Box ever really mix? Well, if you go to patreon.com/grapple, you'll find out. Listen to the live show. It's free. Then subscribe.
Mike is saying here we still miss Revcho. He doesn't miss you guys. Sorry, guys. Based on the interactions like that. JP went for, and I joke, like I'm sure he does, but like I mentioned last week, didn't I, JP, that like obviously JP, he had someone come up to him and ask him if he was Grapple Joe, and he just said no. The funniest was later. I can't believe I didn't tell you this in person. The funniest was later, like in the night, we were out in that what was that place you went for a vegan meal?
Grow. It was called
Grow. Yeah, we were in there, and Bound for the Reload had been on. You know, it had been a big night. Like somebody, just another person came over. It must have been like the fourth or fifth person. Like, are you? Sorry, excuse me. Are you Joe? And you could just see Joe. Literally, it was his Larry David moment. He was ready to be like, right, I'm sick of this fucking grapple, all these fucking people, because he was in a great mood up until that point. And then the person was like, oh yeah, you used to teach me. You and JP were like my tutors back in the day, and I've never seen. It was like a comedy sketch. He just flipped into like being the nicest person. And it was like, oh, it's so great to see you again. I don't know who it was, JP. We'll have to figure it out. But we were all just stood there, literally waiting for Joe to snap. And then it just turned out that actually, no, as long as you're not listening to a podcast, you're all good.
I think I know who it is. I'll ask him the next time I do like a walk with him when he's working over in this neck of the woods. So like I'll ask him who that was. I think I know who it is. And we taught him on wrestling. It was the one good thing I did in teaching is when I brought up Roddy Piper and They Live. I went, oh, know about the wrestling. I thought, here we go, lads. Now, and then he was just like straight away. Well, you know, Joe is walking in my lessons and we're talking about Ring of Honor with him. And I just went, I'm getting paid for this. This fucking
I joke though, no, it was great to have Joe back in the mix, and he was happy to see everyone, you know, seeing him chatting to you again and stuff. Matty was trying to sell him on the concept of time. That sounded weightier than I meant it. The podcast concept of time.
Went all Stephen Hawking on him again, mate.
JP,
I'm going to try it.
He was having it, wasn't he? He
was having it, and I'm trying to chisel my way to get him to do a podcast about the Bill, mate, because I've never been laughing my head off so much, JP, how he was breaking down the Bill storylines. He knew every character. Mate, I had such a great time with that. Legend.
Oh well, but yeah, if you see him at New Japan, don't approach. Or do approach because it gives us funny stories. We'll work him back into the whole mix eventually, won't we, JP? But now you can get the audio back of our live show on the Patreon, as well as this month we're doing Dealer's Choice Month once again.
Yes.
By popular demand. I think the last one was around May time, was it? Maybe a little bit
February.
That.
February it was.
February fucking hell time.
8 months
ago.
It's been
a year since CM Punk's promo, and now you tell me that too. But so if you missed it last time, general concept is all four of us we did a spin of the wheel on the weekend show, and we all get to pick one show each that we have to do, and everyone has to get involved. No opting out. It's one of those where we can do our worst, or we can make everyone have a good time and do a podcast, one or the other. JP's was first up, and yeah, JP, you've and I'm sure you're the first one. It's going to be Matty after that, then me, then Gareth. But yeah, what did you let the patrons know in the pre-show your one was going to be?
So I went with FWA and Ring of Honor teaming up. 17th of May 2003. I was at this show, Frontiers of Honor. So, and none of you lads have seen it, which as the Ring of Honor completist, Benno, I can see why, but I'm still.
I feel like I've seen maybe a match. But I couldn't tell you, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's been like a pack on Extreme Wrestling Torrents or something like that, or like a ROH World Title Matches pack or something like that. Well, I might have seen the Zebra Kid match, but yeah, that's right up my street. Now I can't pick ROH unless Gareth was going to pick ROH as well, and then maybe it can be an unofficial ROH month. Then again, Matty had picked like Jay Lethal, Jonathan Gresham era ROH, so maybe not.
Still counts, doesn't it? Still counts.
Well, yeah, throw the curveball at us there, JP. So, you know, it makes me have to think a little bit harder about my one. But yeah, it's going to be a big month, so it's a great time to join the Patreon to support the podcast and get some great content with 4 shows where we can all do our worst. And Matty can do Steve version 2, aka potentially Randall, which I'm convinced. I think if I say it enough times and make enough jokes about it, Matty, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to have to think of something else. So,
no, you know what that is? We're saving that for me and Jamesy because he's agreed to do it at one point, hasn't he? So I'm not doing Randy, so he's ruled out.
Okay. Well, there you go. And we're revealing them all on the. It's good news. We're revealing them all on the pre-shows every week as well. So if you join the Patreon, you'll get the GRAPPL Spotlight pre-show too. We'll be revealing those choices where we have just a bit of a chat before the live show. So yeah, that sounds good. This is your last month to get on the Patreon before we are going to be making some price changes at the beginning of next month as well. So if you want to get in at the current price and lock that price in, what a great time doing this. I hope I'm making you proud again here, Gareth. Sales job. Get on now. YouTube membership will be coming soon as well. So look out for price and details on that. But that's enough on the hard sell. Patreon.com/grapple for all of that, as well as Spotify and wherever podcasts are sold. But we should get into the main stuff because, as we talked about, it's going to be a busy, big show. I said at this one, JP, we've got a lot to talk about. Somehow, this is the first time we're recording since some big news stories broke at the weekend. I almost don't want to launch into it. I almost want to be like, Gareth, do you want to talk about, should we get a couple more happy memories in of All In before we get into this, before our whole world comes crashing down?
Well, I really enjoyed that CM Punk Samoa Joe match. It got me dead excited about the future and what the next beats might be in Punk's reign in AEW. It's exciting times, isn't it?
What a difference a week makes. That's the thing when we were recording that podcast. Like I said, that live in the building, like I had that same feeling of, oh, what a fucking amazing match. And then I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Philip. Like, here we go again. And unfortunately, you could also hear, or if you were talking our audio, you can get the audio of me on the weekend show from Friday, swearing blind to JP that there's no chance Tony Khan's ever going to grow a set of bollocks and sack CM Punk. In fact, when the news came through, and you'll love this, Matty, I was drinking a nice filter coffee, best filter coffee in town outside Dunkin' Donuts in town. Me and Steph were sat there, and I was literally halfway through the sentence to Steph going, there's no way he'll sack him. It's just not going to happen. Oh, fuck. And Roberta posted the story in our Discord. So my world came crashing down. I'm guessing, Gareth, you were on a beach somewhere thinking of your happy memories of All In when this week's big news broke.
It was kind of, in some ways, it was kind of like the best way to kind of find out the news, because it was just a little bit like, well, I'm not going to sit here and just like, sort of go into the fucking detail of it kind of thing too much. It was kind of one of those, I sort of saw it and I was like, oh, well, that's expected kind of thing. And just, I'll get on with my holiday kind of thing. Whereas if I'd have been sat at home or sat at work, I'd have been like fucking this just at my phone for like 20 hours, just waiting for the next thing to break down with it. But like, it's, I don't know. It was one of you sort of, you left coming out of Wembley feeling like, I don't know, where you're saying he's never going to grow a set and fucking sack him. It was feeling like, if he doesn't do it now, I think it was Crewy, wasn't it? While we were watching the show, he said he was on his phone and he was like, said about like, fucking hell, this happened like, before the match. So you sort of knew in the building something had gone on. So at that point, so you're thinking, how far can this get like pushed? And then you're seeing like the angles of it have like been negative towards Jungle Boy and things like that. But then obviously, the retaliation and everything like, coming out of CM Punk and things, you're just like, this can't just keep going on forever kind of thing. So I think there was probably like 50% of my mind thinking, surely something's going to happen on the back of this now. So it didn't feel like the biggest surprise in the world it happened. I think the biggest surprise in the world was probably more, like you say, Benno, that like Tony actually grew a set and did do something about it. Not that Punk had left in one way or another kind of thing. It was some surprising, finally strong leadership from Tony Khan. If you believe what you read.
Well, we got the statements up on screen here, JP. This was what came out over the weekend. Obviously, talking Tony Khan's big statement on AEW, written in a little bit of legalese, and with nice platitudes there. But I was literally on Twitter. I was literally trying to figure. I was like, "Oh, this must be a fake Twitter account. This can't be the real AEW." I was in denial, Gareth. That's what it was. I was like, "Oh, there must be."
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's the greatest work ever.
To set up the long story to do the Kenny Omega match, it all makes sense now. But yeah, obviously I'll go through it, the timeline, JP. Obviously, first we got this statement that the AEW Discipline Committee, which we still don't know who the members are, had convened with legal counsel before making a unanimous recommendation that CM Punk be terminated with cause from AEW. Obviously, there's a note there from Tony Khan talking about how it was one of the most difficult decisions he'd made, and if that wasn't enough, we then had the collision. I mean, perfect timing. Obviously, 3 shows in Chicago in one weekend. Absolutely, the great time for this to happen. But Tony Khan did, in fairness to him, head off the collision crowd. It seemed to actually go relatively well, despite some boos to kind of explain it to them. And then we basically got an identikit statement from Tony Khan before collision, provided by Tony Khan in his standard deer and headlights style, as you can see there in the video version, as he talks about, again, being the toughest decision of his professional career to terminate Phil Brooks, CM Punk. The biggest kind of thing that came out of this, and we'd kind of heard it a little bit in the reporting, you'll hear the word lunge a lot today, but Tony Khan, in his statements, obviously talked about not wanting the fans to be upset, but obviously talking about how the incident was regrettable, endangered people backstage. That included production staff, the people who put the show on every week. Outright saying he'd been going to wrestling shows for 30 years, been producing them on this network for nearly 4, and never felt until last Sunday that his security and safety and life was in danger. That's why we're going to go to Matty.
Fuck.
Feels dramatic, but maybe did Tony Khan write this? Did the legal people write this for him? I don't know. But yeah, obviously, I thought nobody should feel that way at work, and therefore we had to come to the decision to relieve Phil Brooks of his 2 responsibilities, JP, which I think is very interesting in this. Talks about his 2 contracts, presumably one as a wrestler, one as some kind of employee, probably to get benefits, but we don't know the ins and outs of that. What it was, he special advisor to Tony Khan or something like that, or something maybe worth a bit more on paper than allegedly being an EVP is. But yeah, got quite a bit more detail, didn't we, on Saturday, JP? But yeah, that's what we know at this point.
Yeah, and it had to happen. When you heard the full stories of this and the fact that there was multiple reports of the same thing, and given the statement, I mean, dare I say it, for this week, he managed to kind of head off, I think, a lot of potential issues somehow. And we'll get into this when we talk about the show itself as well. He was kind of got out of jail by some people, but in this sense, it had to happen. And, there's the image behind me here for video viewers of and it wasn't necessarily like this by all accounts, but if you're lobbing, as what is reported, lobbing tellies around, and you've been brought back effectively what sounds like on probation, you've broken that, haven't you? There's no way in the world that you haven't. And so he had to, for all of the issues. It's just like it couldn't keep going on. And in this case, it just feels like he exploded. And, while obviously that had to happen, and I imagine the disciplinary committee hopefully aren't made up of people really involved with AEW, talking about whatever HR department that he kind of employs, along with legal counsel and things like this. And this is the only sensible decision to kind of come to for it. The thing is, he just can't play well with others. As brilliant as he is at wrestling, and as great a mind as he has, and even the kind of worker he is in the ring, he just can't play with others. He just can't do it. And whatever, like, and it's, you know, it's very easy, I think, at times to kind of portray this in this kind of binary. You're either Punk or the Elite, and that's kind of the way that the discourse has kind of gone around it. It's impossible to defend these actions. Yeah. Like, you would have struggled to get away with this shit probably in the 70s, to be honest with you. Like in wrestling, probably in Death of the Territories, it feels like it's more akin to that. And it is, as a CM Punk fan, incredibly sad that this has happened, because the potential of stuff is there. But he's the one who blows this up, ultimately, in terms of the way he reacts. It feels like he never could get on with that locker room from the moment he walked in there. There was always seemed to be kind of issues beyond, like, the first, I don't know, it feels like maybe have gone a month before there were some kind of rumblings about stuff going on there as well. So he had to do it, but it's a long time, and this is a problem. Ultimately, you can't help but feel could have been headed off at the pass if they dealt with things that happened a year ago, and they never did. And this situation was entirely allowed to fester without it ever being resolved. And splitting up the crews wasn't the thing to do it, because eventually you have to bring people together. And the back office staff are kind of like one set group. You know, they are still one company, even if it's like they're touring on different days. And he fucked it for them. And it's sort of built up to this degree. And it's whether or not, should there have been, like, obviously the conversations that had gone on earlier on as well, about trying to kind of head off all of the various issues that he had. But can you solve the issues that CM Punk had?
That's the thing. Because I think there is a bigger conversation to be had about, you know, this. Obviously, coincidentally, this week we've seen a lot of news reported about a meeting that, you know, CM Punk and the Young Bucks, the Elite, could have had on the Wednesday when Dynamite and Collision was taped before All In. Strange time for that to be leaked to the press, isn't it? It's almost like a narrative is trying to be set there, and I say that as somebody who's, you know, a card-carrying member of the Collider team. But, like, you know, that is an element of the story, and if that had happened, maybe we wouldn't be here. But can I say we wouldn't have been here in 3 months? Can I say we've been here in 4 months? Can I say like, knowing what ended up happening at All In, the Young Bucks are even wrong for not wanting to meet with this psychopath? Like, and I say that as someone who loves him. Like, I jokingly called him our Psycho King, either on Twitter or on the podcast last week, because it was like, I can get enjoyment out of this. Obviously, you know, as a big CM Punk fan who loves as Gareth talks about, the product that we see on screen, and how, you know, how great he was at All In itself. You know, he's been a breath of fresh air in a company that's in creative disarray, I think. Like, CM Punk's part of this, and specifically his little world in Collision, until it felt like he lost interest about 3 weeks ago, you know, was an oasis away from some of the bad creative in AEW. There's all these positives and all these reasons I love CM Punk, and you know, maybe it's immature, but I can even laugh at these stories and go, here he goes again. He's choking the Jungle Boy backstage. You know, is he gonna get Michael Nakazawa next week? What's he gonna do next week? Isn't it hilarious? I can say that as someone from the outside, but I think we've been consistent from the start. If you're Tony Khan and you're trying to run a business, you can't. It was an untenable situation, and yes, there are other elements to this, and there's mismanagement, and I'm sure you want to get into as well, Gareth, like along the way that got us to this position. But, like, you've got to lay the vast majority of the blame at CM Punk's feet, because, like, just the man will never be happy. That's kind of what we've learned during this AEW run. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be, like, a, you know, he's like I joked about last week, he's turned into the dad from South Park. Everything's an excuse to pop his top off and ask people if they want to go, if they want to go outside and have another fight. He thought this was America. You know, it's like he's turned into that. He's turned into a fucking meme because the Jungle Boy said something stupid on screen, and he launched into all of what happened at All In backstage. And it's very interesting that Jungle Boy hasn't been sacked too, that he's just been suspended in full view of cameras. So, like, you know, as much as even the steadfast CM Punk defenders, I'm certain this tape's going to come out at some point and we're going to see, you know, Dave Meltzer said, you know, that he lunged at Tony Khan and then walked it back a couple of days later and said, to be fair, it was more than lunged at Tony Khan. Like you said, JP, there's mixed stories there about TVs falling on Tony Khan, or, you know, whether we believe he was, you know, thought he was going to die and his life flashed before his eyes or not. Clearly, you know, a situation has been created by CM, but rather than just being able to be the bigger man or, you know, deal with it in just some kind of way, even just verbally, that switch flips and he does what he does and left the company, really. I would say Gareth in no position to do anything else other than this. The only saving grace for CM Punk fans like me and you, Gareth, like we said before, is we were just hoping for Tony Khan to be what Tony Khan has kind of been a lot of the run of AEW, and maybe be slightly weak, and maybe just from a fanboy point of view, hope that he goes, well, but I love CM Punk and lets him through. But it tells you the severity of this, and whatever they've got on that CCTV and whatever the lawyers are seeing on whatever Tony Khan saw himself was too much even for them. And like, you can't, there's just nowhere where you can fault this decision, at least in this moment.
Like, not at all. Like, I remember being on this show like after Brawl Out like last year, and been very much like, you know, I'm as big a CM Punk fan as anybody. You know, I'd been excited, waited for near as damn it a fucking decade for him to come back to wrestling and things like that. I was so pumped to finally see him back and things. But then, like, even at that point, you know, I was saying, you've got to sack him. You've got to sack him for the good of the company. And I was like, I don't want to not watch CM Punk on my TV, but I want to watch a wrestling alternative on my TV that's like a product that's all kind of like pulled together and everyone's pulling in the same direction and everyone's trying to make something the best that it possibly can be. And then with him in the mix, like, for sickos like us, like, we love all the fucking backstage, you know, stuff going on, and you know, every time there's a news story breaks, you can't fucking wait for it. You can't wait to get every detail of it. You're laughing your head off at the nuance of it all and things like that. You're loving it because, like, we don't care about them as people, kind of. They're just these figures of entertainment for us, aren't they, kind of thing? And the backstage drama is half of what pulls it all together and like brings it to light. But you've got to take a step back and look at things, you know, the bigger picture. And you know, the bigger picture for me at that time was always like, well, I don't want AEW to go away. I don't want this to fail. I don't want like the Bucks and Kenny to end up going to WWE or something like that because of it or something. Or, you know, at the end of the day, they were the elite and all elite wrestling kind of thing. So for the good of a wrestling alternative, a credible wrestling alternative company, he needed to sort himself out on the back of that, or he needed to be got rid of. Now, they gave him the fucking second chance. You know, Khan was, whether he was weak or not, and he was fucking weak at Brawl Out, sat there smiling and pulling stupid faces next to him as Punk rabbited out all the lines that he did. So it, you know, that gave off an impression of weak. But there's no indication of him being particularly strong about the situation, I don't think, in the last 12 months in his inability to get them all in one room on the same page, get them pulled together as like, hang about, this is business, this is money, we're trying to create an alternative product, we're trying to work together to advance things, you know, come on, grow up, put your differences aside. He hasn't managed to achieve that. And you all these throwaway things of meetings and, Kenny's warmer to working with him, but the Bucks won't meet him. And, you know, but there's all these different stories of the different conflicts and alliances and things going on in the background. You create a different show on a Saturday, or, you know, to try and separate the pack and things like it's just totally just like untenable. It can't work. Like it, you know, it's just not something that's ever going to work. And as much as I am gutted that I won't be seeing CM Punk on my television week in, week out, because undeniably he's been the best thing on screen for AEW since he turned up. The matches he's had, the feuds he's had, the nuances that of you know, things that have gone into those, the promos and things like that. He feels like he's somebody who's actually had the more rounded, developed sort of character and storylines and feuds and things like that. Like, as a whole, it feels like it's going to be kind of like a better place without him, where you can actually go, do you know what? We can probably lay out here some better stories that like keep people in our main events, that keep people at different points in the card and things like that, and tell better stories and plan better long term than having to work around some like volatile situation. You know, it wouldn't happen in anything else, would it?
No.
It wouldn't be like, you know, we're trying to achieve the best that we can, and like this actor can only be on set these days and things, or this footballer trains on a Tuesday and a Friday, and this set of footballers train on a Wednesday and a Thursday or something like that, and then we all expect them to turn out on a Saturday and, you know, win trophies or something. It's just not something that was ever going to work. And even me just sort of sitting down and just trying to catch up with the wrestling that I've missed this week today, there is something that just kind of just feels a little bit kind of clean slate about it, and just feel a bit kind of I don't know, like, okay, here we go kind of thing. We've just ran the biggest show that we've ever done. We've kind of cut out this, you know, sort of cancer in our locker room to some degree. Like, now we're on a bit of a straight and narrow path, and you know, if there's probably, because people are of a lesser star substance at CM Punk, if there is anybody who has got any issues now in the future, well, hang up, well, there you go. We've seen you. the door's fucking open. Like, fuck off. If we can survive without CM Punk, we can survive without you, kind of thing. So take it or leave it. Get your head down and work with us, or fuck off. Like, that's like, without saying that, there's almost that kind of like underlying feeling of, okay, that's where we are today. That's where the world is today. So I don't know. Maybe it's me sort of falling into one of these blind AEW optimism moments that I get myself into, where I think things are going to work out rosy. But you never know. It's it could be a positive, but it had to happen. It had to go.
Yeah. They've got a lot of other things. I would say they've got a lot of other things, because that's the thing. You've taken the CM Punk, you know, you've taken the poison out of this, but a lot of, you know, like you said there, like a lot of the issues I think AEW have had the last while, a lot of the issues were all in was Tony Khan trying to please all of these different parties and, like, say, have them all in silos. Now, unfortunately, he's got an additional 2 hours of television on a Saturday night. He's got to now deal with, now that CM Punk's gone as well. So there's going to be the hangover, like, to those issues too. And, you know, yeah, I suppose time will tell if they actually, you know, use any of this for positive and maybe learn some lessons from kind of all this went. But I was going to say, my question for you, Matty, was going to be like, do you think CM Punk wanted this? Like, do you think, because I've got to say, like, from the last couple of weeks of Collision, man didn't look like he was happy there. We've seen news stories come out through the week of, you know, pictures that are potentially made for him, you know, at the last time he was out, about going to WWE, about working the Rumble. There was something about working with Kevin Owens, which I find very hard to believe, considering, like, their personal relationship. But, like, him going back, him doing all of this and, like, blowing up the way he did it all in at their biggest show ever and all of that, were they the actions of someone who even wants to be there in the first place? Is he someone who, you know, he saw that EVP meeting get cancelled? He saw, like, you know, things not getting better anytime soon. He's seeing fucking scrubs like Jungle Boy on TV being able to, you know, cut him down and say lines about him or whatever. He's probably a man who just saw, this isn't getting any better. I want to get out. Like, I abide to that conspiracy theory a little bit, that maybe, like, there's an element of that there, and he full well knew what he was doing here, and maybe he's got what he's wanted in some weird perverted way. Not what I want, but what he wants.
But even that speech, Benno, his cauliflower speech as well, where he's putting the feelers out, like mentioning Hunter a lot.
Hunter,
JBL, his best mate.
JBL
is just new Colt Cabana of years ago. Like, how much did he love him?
Oh, he was telling stories I've heard him and Colt Cabana tell, and Colt Cabana just wasn't in the car anymore in the version of the story he tells now. That's him. And also, by the way, didn't just work in front of 80,000 people the year before at Wembley Stadium. No, the apex of his career, getting to WWE and working on the ECW brand, mate. That was, you know, that was what he needs to build up to.
It was a good speech, like, but as you say, I think he wanted out. But as I'm only repeating what you guys have said, like I watched the Brawl Out press conference last night because it was a year to the day, and it's even more mind blowing now than at the time. It's just like Khan just sitting there, like, just, it's, as Gareth said, the faces he's pulling, and like anyone else is just like stopping in mid track. It's bananas. Just go back and watch it. People have, like, again, just to see how mind blowing it is. But yeah, I agree, Ben. I think, like, you know, he definitely want one foot out the door. But as you have said, he had to go. He's the common denominator in every, like, little meme or every just bit of chaos or anything. But I've just got a thing with that me you fear for his life line. I mean, I know what you're saying at work and people, but I can't have that. It's not as if he's going out with a machine gun or something, is it? Let's be clear here. It's like, yeah, he's had a scare, mate, and like, well, I agree with all you. He shouldn't have.
He's not Invader 1, is he? That's fine.
But like, he shouldn't have let the comment get to him, and he shouldn't have exploded. But everyone knows he's that type of emotional character, and I'm sure he did blow up, and I'm sure he did kick off, and maybe he even done his nails moment and when he went for Vince, he's gone for Tony Khan. But like, the life in danger is a bit far, but that's just putting the icing on the cake in this. As you say, someone's written that down where it looks that bad. That again, he had to go when it's written down like that. So it's a combination of everything, really, Benno. But ultimately, it's right for the company because, as we say, what we're going to talk about, he put on a great show. Even I've got to admit that, and hopefully it can carry on. But he did need to go. He should have went last year, but he did need to go.
You and what do you think, JP? To what Gareth was saying before, just see that things are lining better in the company. You know, Bryan Danielson takes over Collision. You know, it's a big happy family that all works to go. They're going forward. Can there be a? I just don't. This is the thing with this, and I think we can talk about this, JP. This is one decision I think Tony Khan has gotten right amongst months of decisions he's gotten wrong. Yeah. It still gives me no confidence that like anything's going to be different going forward. I think we might be in for a sharp shock with that.
I think it's years of indecision as well, and I think that's you hit on it earlier on. It's like, okay, so you can remove him out of the situation. What you are taking away, and I would be obviously said earlier on, like he had to go, but you are taking away the biggest star in terms of the business metrics, in terms of that Rampage rating, in terms of like merchandise, all the things, like, you know, the fact they sold out the United Center on a rumor that he would be there, never actually confirming it. So like you're getting rid of that. You're also getting rid of the person for whom Warner Brothers Discovery had an investment in this, and they know about this now. So they have
the only thing Collision are going for it. The only thing
it did. And so you're talking about really, there's a lot of things they need to sit down and go, right, we've got all of these big shows coming up. They've got Arthur Ashe in a couple of weeks. They've got a pay-per-view. It looks like then they've got another pay-per-view the month after that. You said it before, the creative has been in absolute disarray. Tournaments and battle royals to fill where storylines should have been. And I made this point in the Discord earlier on, even with like the ranking system, there were reasons for like individual fights of people moving up the card towards like what is meant to be the holy grail of the divisions that they're in. And they just don't bother with that stuff. And it requires a whole lot of things to get into place. So they need to sort out who is going to be on Collision. You can say hand it over to Bryan Danielson, but let's face it, they could be telling better stories in terms of following up stuff from Dynamite to Collision for them. Like, I don't think having this oversaturated roster is really going to necessarily help. And the fact that Collision was doing stuff that you can have a different feel and stuff to the show, there's no reason why you can't ask, you know, Kenny Omega or the Bucks or whatever to work on those Saturdays, which
we've been told it looks like the brand split, like the unofficial brand split is over. That's been reported this week.
Yeah, we're there now, definitely.
Well, and they have to do, but they also have to be doing stuff that's substantial. Yeah. And you know, we're going to talk about the pay-per-view in a bit, which is another pay-per-view where the build is terrible and the wrestlers get it out of them, but the TV is where the money is. They still have this $1 billion deal. They can't let Collision go to shit. It's not in anyone's interest. So everyone has to be pulling on board here now. So there's actually a bit of things that not only has to come from him in terms of how he books, which frankly should be delegating responsibility. That much should be clear. It's like, I can't be doing all of this. This is insane. And people need to actually say this at this point in time and hand stuff over quite clearly. And there are wrestlers in Moxley and Danielson who have always seemed like the grown-ups in the room who you can kind of rely on for stuff. I won't harp on to the point because it seems to get us nothing but grief, but the EVPs need to actually do their fucking job. They just need to do their fucking job. Enough of them acting like children. They don't need to go out taking the piss out of CM Punk thinking, well, this will make him seethe even more. None of that shit. You need to actually focus on storylines and promos and how they're going to follow up things like All Out. And it requires this whole bigger issue that's been in place. They've got rid of CM Punk, but CM Punk is not responsible for all of the ills in AEW. It's very easy and very simple to see it like that, but that isn't actually the case. These are problems that have been going on 4 months when he was away, when they could have been getting things like their house in order and the rest of it. And they have to make Collision work because $1 billion deal resides on it. And that might mean putting faith in other people, one of which in particular, when we get onto All Out, I actually think you can promote this person to be a big fucking star who is completely unique to your company. In Orange Cassidy, for example, there are things that they can do like that, but are they actually going to do it? Because what I got from a lot of the post-match press conferences, we don't need to worry about the TV and the wrestlers get them out of jail. And if that's still the attitude, then I'm still fearful of the direction that they're going in.
Well, can I just say, though, sorry, Benno, sorry. It's like Tony Khan basically said, though, didn't he? The TV doesn't matter, in other words. And like you had wrestlers coming out saying, going down the Bully Ray route of just enjoy the product and just enjoy the pay-per-views this week. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? At the same time, what are we saying? What are we saying?
Not the sign of a good house, is it? Alan Farrell said that, like, that's never a good sign from a whether you think you're right, shut the fuck up. You know, don't be arguing with the fans who are pointing out rightful like issues with the product. But before we'll talk the pay-per-view in a bit. Before we get there, like to what JP said there, Gareth, like, but like the stuff with the books, you know, again, I think hopefully you've been clear enough. 80-90%, almost 100% the blame here lies with CM Punk for why he's no longer in the company, and we are gutted about it, devastated about it. We can talk in a minute about our appetite to see him elsewhere after this. We can get into all that, but like, as with your business head on, like, should the Elite have met him in the middle? Should it even have been a question? Should this if this meeting had taken place last week, like, would things be different? Things might have at least been delayed a while. Like, there's definitely a part of me that's like, it's hard because people want to simplify this and go, well, if this happened in my office, and it's like, well, it's not your office, it's a wrestling company, and that goes in both directions. You know, it's not the same. But should EVPs have been forced before now to sit down and have these tough conversations for the better of the company? Like, it's an argument I'm willing to hear.
I mean, the idea that they're just like, not speaking to him, it's just fucking playground stuff. That to me, like, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, at the end of the day,
think they've won.
You know, the one thing of them, like, this idea that they're EVPs, which, as I'll always say, I don't believe the fucking paper that's written on for 1 second that they've got any fucking prominent business role in it. But as supposed leaders of the business in one way or another, you know, in terms of where the company stemmed from. The idea that they can't fucking man up enough to sit down and just have an adult conversation and just try and like work through some issues and just see how things are going to, you know, work for the betterment of the company as a whole, who they have a vested interest in the success of. It's just absolutely like pathetic to me. And then when I saw the stuff on Twitter of them doing like their victory lap around the ring the other day, I just was like, that is just like that to me, that just summed up how pathetic they are. Like, to my end, the view that it was like fucking Shawn Michaels 1997 stuff. That for me, like, it was just absolutely just like pathetic. It was thinking that's not the message that you like want to come out there and, you know, send out supposedly like people in their position as well, and that's where then, like, where you think, okay, you want sort of like people pulling in the same direction and pulling towards something that's a bit more positive. That's where then, for me, as somebody who's like, you know, pro AEW and like wants AEW to succeed and, you know, not a fan of WWE at all and things like that, that's where I'm sitting, like, looking at that and I'm thinking, fucking hell, I hope Punk turns up on like NXT and beats Dynamite in the ratings or something like that. That'll stick it up the Bucks' arse, won't it, if they fucking turn around and they look there and like Dynamite's got beat or something, like, you know, and even if he doesn't, even if it's just rumored that he's going to be on NXT or something like that and they still beat them, just a rumor of Punk being on there, like, beats Dynamite. I'm thinking, I shouldn't want that. I'm like a card-carrying AEW fan, kind of. Oh, yeah, I'm a CM Punk fan, but I'm an anti-WWE fan as much as a pro AEW fan, you know. But it's even like leading me there to want to see them fall flat on their fucking faces because of the way they've gone about the whole thing. Not just the victory lap, their lack of professionalism and their lack of like adultness in terms of talking about and dealing with the situation and things. And again, that's where, you know, that's where you wonder with them, okay, like, fundamentally, the blame in a lot of this stuff lies at CM Punk's feet, as we've said, we've reiterated, it's multiple instances, but he's not alone in the blame line at his feet. There's people there who've got a lot of blame who are still in the business, and who's to say that wrestler X doesn't fall out of line with them and their way of thinking in 4 months' time, 5 months' time, 12 months' time, who's got value to AEW, and suddenly hang about, are they going to be on the outs again? Are they going to be having 10, 12 different people pulling against them, talking about them to, dirt sheets and things like that, like almost like setting them up for a fall and things like that, building that level of conflict. It's, they don't give any indication that that's not gonna, that's not gonna be the case either. I just that's where those are the signs, those are the things that don't bode well for me from that end.
Do we want to see it, Gareth? Do we want to see CM Punk in AEW in WWE? Like, I think Matty's going to say, yeah, I'm willing to hear it out. Like, I just don't know. I think I want to see him in New Japan or something like that. Maybe he can put his money where his mouth is and do the G1 he alleged he wants to do at one point. Like,
he wouldn't last 2 matches, I'm going to say.
Like, this is what makes it so sad for me. Me and you are the biggest Punk fans, I think, on this podcast. Like, JP runs us close at times. JP's you're with us, aren't you, JP, as well? But like, I just don't know if I actually. Maybe it is the AEW fan in me that it'd just be sad to see them kind of get that victory, or it'd be sad to see Punk go from, yes, Collision as an entity was broken. The idea that he was, he had the run of the show, but he only had about 12 toys to play with because everyone else fucking hated him. Like you said, was never going to be a long-term play. Like, but CM Punk had his sandbox, could cut his promos the way he wanted, could have his matches the way he wanted, could have his feuds go the way he wanted. To even get into WWE, I think he's going to need to, like, we're going to need not a miracle, but we're going to need, like, all the cards, all the stars to align, and for that to happen. But even then, for it to work in WWE, they'd have to give him probably the power to cut the promos the way he likes to do his programs the way he likes to. Like, I'd need all of those things before I'd co-sign, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Because, like, you'd end up punching the Miz out and he'd be gone within a month based on, like, the Punk.
They've made up now, Benno. Remember, he was backstage at Raw. They've made up, haven't they?
Sure about that, mate. But, like, I don't even know if I want to see it, I suppose, is the bigger point, Gareth. Like, do I want to see that? I think we all remember the great stuff of Punk in WWE, but do we want to see, like, a watered down CM Punk trying to fit into, no offense to Matty, 2023 WWE product? Like, that's almost sadder for me. It makes me even sadder that this AEW run's gone the way it has.
I just don't think it could. Realistically, you take a step back and you think about it, and I just can't see how it could work. Like, when you think about Punk's psyche and his mentality since he joined AEW, and that's a guy who, like, had 8 years out of the business kind of thing. So he wasn't there in the day-to-day grind. He wasn't there today with all the politics and the backbiting and all that kind of thing, like, going on around him constantly. This is a guy who, in theory, should have matured by nearly a decade of his life, and, like, he's had pretty much a decade to just chill out and train and spend time with his wife and his dog and just kind of have no stress in his life and have plenty of money in the bank and all that kind of thing. So this is a guy who's, like, gone from that, Shark Tank background to Easy Street to some degree, and then back into the mix at AEW, and he hasn't been able to hack it. Like mentally, he hasn't been able to hack the environment that he's been put in, which has, it's quite clearly caused him to overreact to a lot of situations where he shouldn't have. Maybe he just hasn't read the room, and mentally he still thinks it's 2008 in his head and things like that, and he thinks he's in their dressing room with the JBL, is a good mate JBL of this world and things like that. He thinks that's what the environment's like. Things have changed a lot as well. So I don't know if he could fit in to WWE from that perspective mentally, but even physically, I mean, people talk about him, the idea of him, I don't know, he could have, like, a Brock Lesnar contract or something like that. He could do a few, like, he could do 10 shows a year or something like that. But, I mean, based on his track record in AEW, is his body even up to even that kind of thing? And you know, I look at things and I think that if he did go to WWE, first and foremost, they're going to say, right, look, we want you to prove that you can toe the line and you can fit in here, kind of thing. So that's one hurdle that he's going to have to do. There's no way they're throwing him right in there and sticking the world title on him or headlining WrestleMania immediately next April or something like that as he'd want, because they wouldn't have the trust in him to do that. You know, they'd want to know. You know, it's classic. They make you wait, kind of thing, don't they? You've got to, you know. So in theory, it's personally, I think he's got 18 months really to get that headline WrestleMania thing that would be in his head. That would be the carrot for him for him to want to go back there. I don't know if he could survive physically or mentally 18 months to even get to that point, like anyway, sort of thing. So to me, it just feels like a bit of a mute point, but I think he'll want to, because knowing what a vindictive bloke he is, he'll want to go there and he'll want to stick it to them. He'll absolutely he'll want to stick it up AEW's ass. He'll want to stick it up the Bucks' ass. He'll want to, you know, be able to go, 3 times as many people watched me this week as watched the Bucks, or he'll want to be there, like coming out at WrestleMania in front of, like, you know, a massive house kind of thing, knowing it's the big, genuinely, you know, the biggest wrestling show of the year sort of thing, that he'll have something to say on the ramp and things. He'll have, you know what I mean? Like he'll want to stick it back in that way, because that's just the way that's the way he's made. And in many ways, if he did do that, I mean, it'd still be an entertaining ride, wouldn't it? I'd still like.
You should love it. You should love it still.
I don't want to see him there because of what my love of CM Punk is formed on to quite a lot of the degree. The idea of him then going and, like, he's having to be, I don't know, not bowed out at Triple H, but, like, you know, kind of, you know, he's having a vested interest in his career direction. He's, you know, he's under Vince McMahon and things like that's, like, to me, that some ways feels weaker than Tony Khan not sacking him in 12 months ago. It makes CM Punk weak that he has to eat that there was everything that he was fighting against in order to try and prove a point in some way back the other. It just all becomes really kind of like
he's fine with being a hypocrite. That's one thing we've learned.
You know, but it's sort of
$1,000,000%.
It's turned. You know, then who is he? Then who is he at that point, kind of thing? And then, like,
I don't know.
Do you want to invest? Do you want to invest in that person, like as a fan? Because it's. I don't. It's
when he's walking out with the voice of the voiceless T-shirt with a big WWE logo in the corner of
just
it.
Open up
like those new NWO T-shirts.
Just him sitting on the ramp. Just let him sit on the ramp opening.
This is what's so sad about it all, JP. Though, like, AEW was tailor-made for him. Like, and the shit out. As much as I love him, the shit out didn't join until 2 years in, when he was like, "All right, it's safe now, and they'll pay me the money I want." Like, you know, for this voiceless punk rock indie spirit kind of guy. Like, he didn't take. We did the All In 2018 review. He wasn't there with that. He was in fucking Chicago. Couldn't come down the road. You know what I mean? He wasn't there for the start of AEW either. You know, I think his story is a little bit upset by all of this, because he comes in and then he can't even join with the revolutionary spirit because he falls out with all the fucking revolutionaries. Like, so I actually think it would be he's landlord Phil now, JP. Landlord Phil would absolutely go to WWE. It's just, the question more for me is whether I want to see him do it. Like, with Gareth, out of spite, I think it's going to happen. Out of spite, he's going to try at the very least. But, like, you know, that kind of completes the story. He's what every young punk rocker becomes, isn't it? You become the landlord you hate.
He would do, wouldn't he? And you can see it's about his vindictiveness, because in some ways New Japan would be able to be like, and even physically, I think the questions that Gareth asks is completely legit, because New Japan would almost be like the better fit, because he would come in and effectively just do his angles and his matches and go, and then that would be it, and it'd be an entirely different culture backstage. Because I completely agree. I think it's just wrestling and wrestlers just moved past the direction that he was used to, because effectively, like, this super, he never worked PWG, did he? It wasn't, and that's what AEW is at points. PWG with this enormous budget, as I saw like earlier in the comments. But yeah, him going back, you just think to yourself, with Mania, if the match is going to be Cody and Roman, they're the two best feuds you'd want him in. And if that match is happening at Mania, then it would have to be someone else, wouldn't it? Now, he could headline one of the 2 days. You can get away with it that way. It's that kind of carrot to dangle over him. But there is those kind of issues. It's a different ownership structure with TKO. So you're not entirely sure, like, on a hiring.
And he is in with that lot.
Yeah,
he loves staying away.
He does the commentary. And it should also be noted as well, I don't think there were problems with him in UFC. I mean, he was shit. That was the problem. Ultimately, he couldn't fucking fight for toffee. Couldn't fight out of a paper bag compared to those lads in there. But at the same time, he does commentary a lot on there as well. And yeah, that's going to be the thing about, do you bring it? They're the kind of 2 big feuds, and you think, well, Cena, we've kind of been there and done that, haven't we? So like, and if there's issues with Owens, there'll be issues with Sami Zayn. Like, you're thinking, who else really would you want to be putting him in there against? Because once you get to those 2, there's big money in it though, and there's ratings, and WWE still is at its core, at its bone marrow, an incredibly vindictive, fucking nasty company. Gareth brought up Death of the Territories. The word death in there is important because Vince McMahon killed them. And if there's some hit he can take about AEW, then he will fucking do that. And he will happily put him on NXT just to say, like, just to beat them that week, just to do that stuff. It's still their competition, and it's the most credible competition they've had in over 20 years. So as a result of that, that's going to be like how the value is in bringing him in. There's a value in New Japan bringing him in as well. Don't get me wrong. And I think the match quality he had in AEW, if he is fit, you can have that. And I don't think he'll get very far if he tries to behave like he did in AEW. Because one thing you can't do is bring him back full time on the road. If you are bringing him in, it has to be selective dates and basically keep him away from the young ones in case he turns their minds evil.
I'd love him to be New Japan and end up on the same tour as Moxley, Jericho, all the same lads. Like next month or something, be fucking hilarious. Get on the phone to Rocky Punk, sort of. Like, this is the thing with the WWE thing though, Matt. Like, for me, it's like, would he even get in the door? Because he'd have fucking, after the news story that came out this week, Regal will be stood on the door going, no chance, mate. I love that news story, by the way. Punk was right. As he often is in these situations, it's just how he's right is the problem. Seth Rollins would be like saying fuck off. Roman Reigns would probably be backing him up saying fuck off. It's whether the arguments.
Yeah,
I'm sure Cody's already texting him, so you know what I mean. We're already like halfway there, probably. But it's like, that's probably the picture.
I think that, like he's saying there, they'll definitely want him in, as JP said. They'll definitely try and bring him in, and I think they'll be like with Punk, dare to say it, like a meet in the middle type thing. He'll want his demands, of course. They'll probably give him them to most of them, so he just comes in. And as Gareth said, maybe he won't do like 10 matches a year, but even if he just does a 6-month stint as like a little trial thing, just get him in at Chicago Survivor Series, which happens, as I say, to fall in Chicago.
Chances of that.
The timing, though, that's what I'm saying. Get him in, doesn't have to wrestle on telly. And I know you say about WWE, like you say, it's gone back to like its basic thing now. They actually will let him tell more stories with Triple H running creative. So I think he'll be better on telly than he would have been coming back like 5 years ago or whatever, where it was still like trash every week and rematches and stuff. I hope it happens anyway. I just want to see it, just for the actual, just to see everyone kick off. I love all that, just seeing it all. Cody's come, Punk's coming. There'll be another one coming back soon. Don't worry about it. Leave the books and all them in AEW and get all the proper ones back home for me.
I threw my world on today, JP. I threw it on YouTube. It just came up. My World with Jeff Jarrett talking the CM Punk situation. He literally said nothing. Like, he was just like, oh, yeah, Tony Khan did a really good job getting a statement out quickly, and then said that for like an hour. But what he did say was, he was like, if I was CM Punk, though, what I'd probably do is just start my own thing and just do 4 shows a year. The CM Punk show. I was like, he'd already have the baseball stadiums booked, wouldn't he, Jeff? That'd be
200 people.
He can help him out with that on the side, cash in hand.
He's probably
Jeff,
already thinking that. Yeah.
Can I just say, I would want to see him on the Stone Cold sessions. I know that hasn't been around for a while. I would love.
He's going to talk, isn't he?
Yeah,
there's going to be
he's got to come out
two
soon,
things,
Benno. Yeah,
JP. Two things are guaranteed here. There's going to be legal threats and legal action, like in both directions, probably. Because, like, as clean as this allegedly is, because he was released with cause, which means, you know, AEW have justified themselves, which also probably means there's no, you know, period where he can't go work somewhere else. There's absolutely going to be toing and froing and fighting over like the money lost and all of that stuff. Like, that is an absolute nailed-on thing. But we're also going to get, despite that, he's turning up somewhere, whether it be Ariel Helwani, or he makes back up with Colt Cabana, or he finds some form, or he rings into Grapple Spotlight. We're open for business, Phil. Give us a call anytime. We know you watch us on YouTube. He's going to be somewhere. 100%. You can guarantee those two things, JP.
Oh, you can. He is going to speak. But like you say there, it's a very difficult legal situation because it doesn't sound like he's got much kind of like of a... He can't be... Otherwise, he'll end up the Colt Cabana in all of this, won't he? And he'll end up being absolutely sued to high hell and be like the kind of poorer party out of it, which would have a beautiful kind of irony to it, I suppose. But yeah, this is the thing. He can say it. I mean, I could just see him kicking off about the culture of the company and saying about how like mismanaged it is and childish.
Like, what would he do? Like, you got to go to Saudi Arabia, mate. Like, what happens then after everything you said? Yeah. He'd be Jordan Henderson, wouldn't he? He'd be like, "Oh yes, Sam.
It's all right here, actually, isn't it?" I thought Qatar was bad, and it turned out really lovely. And it's like, yeah, they're not torturing the people in front of you, Jordan, as you open your fucking curtains, mate. Like, it's happening behind closed doors.
He went on the VIP like stadium tour. Oh, it's actually quite nice. This, it's fine. It's not like what you read in the papers. So yeah, maybe they haven't took you to the death chambers, like where they, like, they kill the dissidents.
So it's like when they used to get like parents in at your school and they'd actually like clean up and stuff like that. So it looked like quite nice, you know, unlike parents. Hey,
like Liverpool on Eurovision, it was like that
too. A question though, like I've got for you is like, is 2023 CM Punk as valuable as 2021 CM Punk though, in terms of like a draw and things like that? Because obviously when he came to AEW in 2021, that was, you know, he'd been gone a long time. There'd been obviously the CM Punk chants in the crowd that had just gone on for years and years. Everyone was like anticipating this. He came in, obviously popped that massive number for Rampage, you know, on his debut. You know, that the first sort of few months of him in AEW were like really good numbers. But I don't know, it's weird like now, because I think that as we've talked in the past, WWE's crowd's changed. I feel like there's a certain negativity towards him amongst newer fans within AEW, certainly, and things like that. From what I've read, I don't think it sounds like it got the same negative reaction amongst the Chicago crowd. Like, they didn't shit all, as far as I'm aware, haven't seen it. They didn't shit all over it, did they? The fact that he wasn't there, is that true? I'm sure I've read kind of like sort of thing
massively.
that.
The books a little bit, weren't they, in the match?
Yeah,
so,
in spots.
You know, so some of the ratings when he has been on stuff have underwhelmed. You know, not popped quite as large and as consistent as you'd think they would. So I don't know. Is he as big a draw? Does he have as much value? Given that he's someone who causes problems in the locker room. Given that he's somebody who physically can't consistently go like he used to. If he's not delivering the numbers either, like, do you want him? Do WWE at a period when they're in a real upturn and they've like their ratings are doing good? They're getting a lot of positivity towards their creativity and things like that in certain instances. Some of the match quality on pay-per-views seems to be like going in the right direction. Like, do they want to throw that in the mix? Is it?
We'll push back on that bit later on, mate.
It's you know, it's that juice worth the squeeze kind of thing. Like,
it's whether you can sell it. I don't know whether JP would say the same. I think it's one of those where it's like, you're absolutely right. We should call a spade a spade. The numbers are, there's still like a bump with CM Punk when you look at, like, you know, when he's on Collision, when he's not, the main event segments on Collision, his comeback in general. You can make the argument, but it's not as a stronger argument as it was when he first come in. You're absolutely right about that. You know, it's coming at quite a good time for him, because, like, I think it literally came out the day before he got fired. Like, he was still AEW's #1 merch seller. So you can make the art. It's whether you want to make the arguments is probably what I'd say, JP, because you could sell it. Because you're more in tune with this stuff than me, but you could sell it to WWE after right fees, aren't they? They're about to renew. Oh, we've got this big star coming back, CM Punk. I think there's enough there that you can puff it up and make it sound bigger than it is. But it's definitely something to what Garrett's saying there, where it's softer than you would like. He's going to get to run away with it. Liam said it in the chat a couple of times. Collision's going to go down the tubes now. It's going to be like your mate Russo, Matty, where it's going to be like, see, when I left, look what happens. Never mind the fact that it's head-to-head with the NFL. But, he's going to have that positive too, isn't he? But I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle with it, where he's clearly in a wrestling world where there aren't many draws. He's a draw, but to Garrett's point, it's how much and whether you can sell that, I think, is maybe more what it is.
It's also what version of CM Punk are you selling? Because there is a version of CM Punk where he's kind of the CM Punk that we love, where that person is definitely interesting. And if you think of his time on Collision, it was a feud with Ricky Starks, but other than that, it was nothing substantial. And that's part of the problem, I think, with this, is that the booking itself has been, and it's because of the situation, because the engaging storylines, really, we never got them drawn out for particular long amounts of time, did we? And even the Moxley stuff, we kind of rushed through as well. And going back to the MJF stuff, probably was one of the things we thought, good, at least he's done that. But we never got the Kenny stuff. We never got the, Hangman Page felt that was kind of cut off effectively as soon as that promo had happened as well. But I think there is
Oh, yeah, Kingston was good.
Yeah, but again, it was a kind of a short-term feud, and it's going to be interesting at some point when we do the podcast covering his run in AEW about where it is. We're going to see all of the kind of missed opportunities. It's just, if you're bringing him back and it's
great
kind of
matches, promos, and feuds, Matty, what's your issue?
I agree.
If it's unhinged CM Punk cutting pipe bomb style promos and laying waste to the competition, there is a value in that. And there is people who are hardcore behind WWE who would completely get on board with that stuff. And he could sell it that way. It's whether or not he can legally do that. And do they want him to do that as well? Because obviously there's a whole load of other griefs about it. I mean, he knows not to kind of swear on telly and whatnot, but he'll say pretty much most things. And The
Independent linked him to Boris Johnson and Donald Trump as far as problematic men in the news today. And if you saw that, JP, there's an article to it today where that is literally the headline. Problematic men taken down. Boris Johnson, Donald Trump, Phil Brooks.
I mean, in many ways, those guys kind of try to ruin Western democracy. We cannot level that thing at Phil Brooks. Donald Trump tried to steal an election. Again, I can't say Phil Brooks has done it. He kicks off in a press conference and acts like an arse fucking around other human beings. Again, I don't think we can put him into that category. But there's also the issue with him and wrestling. Does he want to stay in it? Because he's not really a success anywhere else, is he? And apart from being a landlord, clearly. So it's whether or not does he want to do that and be in the spotlight? And very clearly, yes. But it's like he kind of hates wrestling, but it's the thing that he's best at as well, by a country mile, and has the best mind for it. So is he gonna be able to do it? And I think if he has to negotiate with a team of writers about stuff on Raw, you just don't see that relationship lasting very long, do you? Whereas he's just give me the fucking mic. I'm not talking to him. He's a stooge. It's just oh Christ, here we go again.
I think we all agree he's not done. We don't know where he ends up. But it would be romantic to say, and we should probably before you go, get a couple of all-in thoughts for you, that I got to be there as final match. It was an all-in in front of 80,000 people. He hit Samoa Joe with a really ropey Pepsi plunge off the top. Stevie Richards' YouTube channel will break that down for you if you want to watch it. But there are, Jamesy said this before, that's all we wanted as British fans. When he came back, remember we made those jokes? Just eke it out to Wembley. We just want to get there, and we get to see CM Punk, and we got to see it, and it ended. And it would, as much as there's all these negatives to the story, Gareth, there's kind of that, oh, that's kind of nice that we finally, we saw that final, even that photo. It's absolutely going to be in the show images of them walking off with the finger up, just brilliant, great exit. It's not the last we've heard of Phil Brooks, is it? Whether it's WWE, whether it's somehow when New Japan end up finding the money down the back of the sofa to do something there. he will wrestle. Or if you take, I wouldn't put it past Tony Khan to in 6 months to just bring him back. No one's talking about that. Like that's absolutely possible. It's happened in footy. Tony Khan's presided over like things like that happening in the NFL. Like I wouldn't rule that out either. But I think we all agree, don't we, Gareth? Like it's not the end, is it? Or am I in denial? Am I just in the denial stage of grief right now?
I don't know. Like, I feel more like it could be, kind of. I think there's a certain part of me that thinks it could be, if there's, depending on, obviously like the mentality around WWE and things like that. If they don't want him, if they don't offer him what he wants, kind of thing, if they can't find a middle ground, kind of thing, then I just don't see him go to New Japan, especially with the AEW relationship that they've got with New Japan as well. Like it just doesn't, that just doesn't seem to fit for me. I can't see him doing indie shit the whole, doing your own shows. Can't see that kind of thing either. Like maybe your thing there, maybe your view there of further down the line, him coming back to AEW. Like maybe can't but I don't know. Either way, like you say, it was a brilliant punctuation point to be able to like have that Wembley moment on the back of like where, obviously we'd done that Punk Joe series ourselves, a few months ago and things like that. So that was really like close in the mind, getting to just have that moment of it being Wembley Stadium, that many people hearing that music hit. I was saying to Matty on the day, first time I've ever seen CM Punk live.
I couldn't believe that.
So if that's the way it goes, then made it by a day, kind of thing. Like just got that one in the end. That'll fucking do for me. If that's the way he bows out of wrestling, then there you go. It's almost like the perfect thing of the man who was like in a crowd of 80,000 people. That the majority of them were pulling for Joe, but he was like eliciting a massive response, putting on a really good wrestling match, and then a bit of fucking aggro in the back as well. Like CM Punk rolled up into a fucking ball there for you, isn't it? Kind of thing. Literally, everything in one day. Take CM Punk and that, as well as the stuff of him just on the tube and things like that as well, and just the little order and the Nando's and all that stories. Everything about that. Everything about that final day is just like. There you go. There's CM Punk in a nutshell, and I'm happy with that lot. If I never see him on WWE TV or AEW TV again, so be so be it. We got to see him bow out, but I don't know. There's more to this one, isn't there? This
Punk in it. He'll be in the news cycle now for that next 6 months of the year. Where's he gonna go? It's gonna be the new YouTube video we do every week, JP. CM Punk watch. There's gonna be the news
at the end of the day, if you're bringing back the Ultimate Warrior, if you're bringing back some of those people that WWE have in the past, the thing, if you can find a truce with Bret Hart and things like that, etc. There's, Bruno Sammartino, all these people who've had massive grudges, court cases, everything. WWE's business, isn't it? And they treat it as a business, and then I'm sure
Survivor Series,
something will get worked out. Something will get worked out.
It's in his head.
Thanksgiving weekend as well. It's almost perfect in Chicago with AEW up the road. Watch this space. On that note, before we let you go, Gareth, as you say, you've been away until today, so you haven't managed to see All Out or Payback. Obviously, we're going to spend some time on Payback in a bit.
I'll never see Payback, don't worry.
That's why we got you there. But are there any quick thoughts you want to give on All In? That maybe you were listening to the radio shouting at us last week when we talked All In before we get into All Out. Do we have any fond memories before it's completely lost to the ether of a CM Punk news cycle and we get into All Out?
I mean, it was just one of those where just that whole spectacle of the day kind of thing. I think the thing that just kept getting me was just sitting there in my seat, and I kept looking to that stand to the left, so the one that was opposite the entranceway. And I was just look, and I'd just sort of focus in on someone's head, and then you'd kind of and then see how many more heads were around it kind of thing. And you'd just been oh my God, like just the sheer spectacle of the volume of people there was just like absolutely mind blowing. Like as much as you had that built up, as much as we knew how many people were there and things like that, like until you were there in the building looking at it, like I don't think I even appreciated the magnitude of it myself, really. But as far as the show went, I think it's possible to be right in two ways. As you have said, the build was shit. The build should have been, the build was shit. The build could have been better. The build should have been better. Some of those matches should have felt more important than they did. But on the day, like, went out there, some of the best wrestlers in the world, give them fucking 15 minutes to work, 20 minutes to work. They're going to go out there and have like, really good, matches in front of a crowd like that was as hot as that. It was, it delivered on that front. I enjoyed everything, even things like the Stadium Stampede that you couldn't see, that I was assuming were going to be shite, like, because I was thinking that all this stuff's going to be going on. I just loved it. I was just laughing my head off. I was like,
I can confirm that. I can confirm.
I think I was just laughing throughout. Like you just catch a glimpse of Moxley doing something to somebody, and I was just like pissing myself at it. It was just brilliant knowing that this was looking on and seeing like in the distance something's going on, like in the royal box, and you can't quite see what it is, and you're waiting for the TV to cut to it and stuff. Like that was brilliant. I loved that. Like I think the only thing that let me down was the main for me. That like I just sort of left the stadium thinking like, oh, was that it? Was that it? And I know there's more to come in the story. Like, whatever. Let it play out and all that kind of thing. But like, I don't know. That was the only thing in the stadium that, like, as I left, I was like, oh, that was the only one that sort of underwhelmed me. But everything else, I think, in there just like over delivered. And yeah, I kept like. It's just a bit of a blur of a day, really. It was just fantastic.
Amazing. Well, yeah, good to have you on, Gareth. And you're going to feel the same way about All Out, mate. Unbelievably, the great wrestlers went out there and had great wrestling matches. I'm almost annoyed about it, as I've told you, Matty, before we
I can't wait for this, and I'm a part of this discussion. I can't wait.
But no spoilers for Gareth. Gareth, in about 3 weeks, Gareth will catch up with it once you've seen Rampage, Collision, 2 Dynamite. You'll be there, mate.
I'm off work tomorrow. I've got Collision to watch and then the pay-per-view, so I'll be all up to date.
You will like it, Gareth. You will like the pay-per-view. You really will. You do.
And then I'll listen to you lads rip it to pieces.
Wouldn't dream of it, mate.
Maybe not. We'll see. Right, anyone plug Gareth to say before you go?
No, I've got out of plug these days.
Gareth's like transfers or something like that in the car. We could start a new business.
I'm going to say taxi company. He's going to start up.
No, spot on. Well, just good to be on. Discuss that because big topic, obviously. So good to chat through that with you, and catch up with you soon. Look forward to a bit of a ROH and FWA.
Hey, the real stuff, mate. The proper stuff.
Gareth Steelers Chase coming soon as well.
Nice, all right. See you later, lads.
Yeah, mate.
Right.
Well, on that note, I think Tony Khan maybe saw the All In and kind of blueprint worked so well that we did that a second time. All Out, folks. We've got to talk about that because you don't need to build pay-per-views anymore, JP. We've learned that this week. As long as the wrestlers get in there and have good matches, it doesn't matter that this was half built a week between pay-per-views. It doesn't matter that I think if you believe Tony Khan, somebody held a gun to his head and made him do this pay-per-view the week after All In. We've been directly told, haven't we, that he's going to do this again next year. So what's the issue? But in fairness, we got a lot of that motor off on the weekend show. One thing I suppose the haters can be right about, if we thought the match card was going to work out bad, that didn't work out to be the case, because I feel like this pay-per-view, and we should probably start at the top end of the show, add maybe a 4 or possibly 5 match run at the end of this pay-per-view that would match any AEW pay-per-view there's been. And based on the horrendous build, based on the lopsided way we went from All In to All Out, and honestly, even the defenders, you all know you could sit there at home, play EWR, and do a better job of balancing the all in and all out cards as far as giving prestigious matches with maybe a little bit of building, a little bit of stakes behind them. But with that criticism maybe parked for a second, JP, the best wrestlers in the world did go out there, and like you say, that top end of the card, that last 4 or 5 matches, like some absolutely unbelievable stuff.
It really was. I mean, if you were gonna like kind of do some very amateur psychology, it did feel like a weight had been lifted just with everything else, and the fact that the crowd didn't shit on this. Like you mentioned earlier on, it's only a little bit with the Bucks. So I do think the two stories are kind of related. But yeah, it was great. It was really fun. But I mean, as we've said so many times, that's not an excuse to have a shit build, particularly when television is your bread and butter and you're banking on that being your bread and butter in the future. So it means you're kind of duty bound to produce stuff on a weekly basis. Now, clearly, like you say, they're the best wrestlers in the world, but the top end of this was ridiculously good, and it completely over-delivered for what it was, to the point where I think it just helped that the crowd just kind of wanted almost to forget about CM Punk. Like it was like a thing about all of this where there'd been he'd come out and said what he'd said, and I think enough of the word had filtered around for the people who were there to go, actually, do you know what? He had to let him go, even if he is from Chicago. And so they weren't like kind of going to shit on Kenny Omega, which is something I thought they might well do, but they kind of managed to head it off. But
Kenny gets off with it, doesn't he?
Kenny
it's like, you know, when you don't get on with a group of people, Matt, you're like, but that one, he's actually all right.
Yeah.
When I see him in the pub, I shake his hand. Like, like the rest of the cunts he knocks around with, though, you know?
Yeah. And we haven't mentioned at all whether or not Ace Steel is involved in the producing of this show either.
Oh,
I haven't
he's looked out, Danny. He's going to have another 2 years just sat at home now. His only job was to fucking help CM Punk, and now he's just going to sit there with a fat contract for 2 years. Just the winner. But
just don't get involved in it. But it delivered in, I think, like certainly I was going to say like sort of 3 of the matches. I just thought, it has completely delivered in, dare I say it, singles matches as well.
We're still getting our digs in, folks. You know, YouTube folks. You know it's coming. But I will say, we say that there's those stories or build. Matty, I mean, the first big match of the show. We will talk the undercards in a minute. Danielson and Ricky Starks, this was right out of your playbook. This felt very Vinny Roo, where the name on the contract says Dragon, but it's not Ricky the Dragon.
I had a chuckle when I see that in the video package, I'll be honest. Yeah, I had a good chuckle with that. But
what a way to get to that match.
Just unbelievable, because I didn't watch Collision, but obviously watched the pay-per-view and did see it in the video package. I had a good laugh.
It was a good show. We're not going to have time to review it today, but Collision was really good. I enjoyed it.
Right. But as JP said, like, it was, even for myself, like, I really enjoyed, didn't fast forward nothing, watched the whole pay-per-view from top to bottom. And I'll go like JP, I liked like 3 or 4, like matches. One match I think's getting a bit overrated, which I'll go into, but it was still good, but it's getting vastly overrated for me. But I enjoyed 2, especially, I thought were near 5-star matches on this pay-per-view. Fucking loved them.
One of them I would hope we'll start with is that Danielson and Starks match. If you don't agree with it, that was fucking.
That's the overrated one, Benno. That's overrated for me, but we'll go into it.
You're muted for 10 minutes. We're going to have a love-in and you can come back. JP, this fucking, oh my God. I thought that, like, Danielson saved the show. Like, all the roster came together, but, like, him stepping in for Punk, and yes, let's all, maybe question the doctor's judgment to allow him to get in there. I know he said in the post-show presser that, I just didn't throw any punches with the arm. It's like, mate, I saw you land on it several times. You also were whipping the fucker several times in it. Maybe it's not to your taste, Matt, but you always get to that. But, like, the intensity in this one, this was big match. Like, one, he came out to Europe, which absolutely I'm going to be using as the intro, the outro to this for the audio listeners. Fucking love that. And then 2, he channeled fucking 2006, 2007 fucking hard case nutter Bryan Danielson. And like I said this in our Discord, from the second he got color, like for me, the floor was 4 stars. Like this was like you starting a Ken match, Matt, for me. Like, it was just like, this is fucking it now. And I just thought his selling through the match was top notch. the brutality that he brought with just fucking, like, he put Ricky Starks through some fucking his paces, and he's hitting them in safe places, but he's hitting them fucking hard in safe places to the point where I'm still not 100% sure, man, based on his tweets, whether Ricky really enjoyed that element of the match, but it proper got me into it. It brought an intensity out of Ricky Starks I'd never seen that. I'm really interested in what Gareth makes of the match for that reason. And it gave it, none of this, tapping the corner or slapping a stop clock or whatever the fuck they usually do with this gimmick match. I thought this was the best strap match I think I've ever seen. I'd go 4.75 on it. I think that's how strongly I feel about it. Like, I was between 4.5 and 4.75, but I thought this was just out of nowhere, out of barely anything. Like, they went out there, and for me, they had the classic. I'm not expecting you to go 4.75 on it, JP, but I'm expecting, you're probably in a bit more in league with me than Matt.
Yeah, I'd say 4.5, because you'd swear these two were having a blood feud for weeks over it. There was the intensity that kind of delivered. And in some ways, you're thinking, if anyone deserves to have a storyline that can go on and be extended, it's Ricky Starks. Just to answer that question of, can he sort of really mix it in the main event? Because this delivered for what he needed to deliver for him in particular. Can he live with Bryan Danielson? And I just think Bryan Danielson's a fucking genius. Just being able to work this match, having not wrestled in a while with the situation with his arm. He's a fucking maniac. Like, I'd happily say that as well. But it was, I found myself like watching this like sort of a state of awe of like, how is he doing this? How is he having this level of match when he is in no kind of shape to do that? And as Mikey mentioned in the chat, it makes you sad that he couldn't do the week before. Frankly, what happened in that week? Like, in order to,
those dodgy doctors needed to, give him for all. He could have done the stadium stampede, couldn't he? When he needs an extra partner. Come on.
But I'm just hoping this leads, and this is the big thing with this show. Does this lead on to other stuff that's going to go into the TV? If we're talking about future contenders and stuff like this, like Ricky Starks needs to be in prominent feuds with top people if you're going to have this amount of hope. You can't just disappear. And Bryan Danielson does multi-man Blackpool Combat Club stuff and on color commentary. It's like, no, this needs to be like a proper feud that goes in places ultimately, with him going over, dare I say it, as well. But
yeah, we were talking about this today. Like, I think for me, I think about this match. I'm not one of those guys who's like, wins and losses don't matter. Me and Matty are blocked by Road Dogg because we don't agree with that. But in this case, if I'm going to think of this match in 6 months, am I going to remember Ricky Starks really impressing me by gutting through a brutal, violent match with Bryan Danielson, or am I going to remember that he lost? I think I'm going to more remember the performance. It's an exception. It's an outlier because overall, you would like someone like Ricky to get more wins, but then again, Danielson fucking loses a lot in AEW as well. Like, somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. This is what happens when you put two close to top guys, an upper mid-carder and a main eventer together in a match. Someone's going to lose, aren't they? But it's almost one of the matches where it maybe eclipses the result a little bit for me, JP, even though I do see where you're coming from.
You can also argue that about the main event as well. It's kind of, for me, I kind of came away of going, okay, this is like a really good place to put Ricky Starks into. You now need to capitalize on that. And that needs to be brought up with good TV and him going, right, I wasn't expecting that, but now I'm prepared. And you can go and the storyline should tell itself. And Danielson seems like he's more than happy to kind of work with him as well. But I just fucking loved it. It was just like brutal at points, and at times I'm just going, Christ, like there's no business hitting each other with the straps like that, but it fucking worked, and it was properly
Steamboat spot as well. Like, that was another great addition to it. I'm surprised that you're low on this, are you, Matt? That not pull you in?
I'm not low. It's 4 stars, Benno. It was good. What I'm saying, I'm not saying it wasn't good. It was good, and what you just said, it was hard hitting. But it's overrated. Like, the Danielson Brigade, like, are just coming out with full force. Like, he's just like,
he's the best wrestler in the world. Yeah, that's right.
Well, vanilla, strawberry, chocolate. It's all ice cream, Benno. We all have our favourites, and that's no slight, of course. Fine.
I thought you were calling him a vanilla midget then.
No, if you like that, or the Europe lore and what is it, Ring of Honor lore. That's fine. That if you're into that, I've got my own fandom.
It does get a certain part of all our brains going.
No,
Europe starts. And me,
like
Jamesy, and Joe Lemon just pop up like, what?
Yeah. I'm like that with stuff. We're all like that, so that's not a slight. It's just that, I agree with everything you've said. I'm just not as high on it. And if we are picking apart the storylines, it's like, aren't the BCC meant to be these bastard heels? Why is the Dragon coming to Ricky Steamboat's fucking defense? Where
that is the gaping hole.
Baby face? I'm not. If this was WWE, people would be picking that, knocking it to shit. So I've got to do that here because
people. Yeah, no, you can't say that. People are, and I would.
Oh, are they? Okay.
The gigantic, like, again, to the Will wrote this in his article he wrote this week. I didn't agree with everything Will put in his article, but some of the people ripping him apart are just fucking stupid and can't see the forest for the trees. A point he made in his article was about Punk, and he was talking about Tony Khan and talking about how, the wrestlers basically, the problem with AEW is the wrestlers, like, Kenny wants his best mate to get an all-in booking, so he gets one. You know what I mean? Like, Punk wants his own show, has to have his own, so he gets his own show. The Bucks want Brandon Nakazawa, all of Brandon, I was going to say Brandon Nakazawa again. And one of the points he made was, and the Blackpool Combat Club want to be in a stable named after fucking William Regal, who left the company 9 months ago, and be heels when Moxley and Danielson are two of the most beloved wrestlers in the fucking company. Yeah. Like, that is a problem. You're right. You're absolutely right to pull it up, but I don't, I think everyone would say that. I think them as heels, they are miscast, and then you have a moment like this where I think Danielson tried to defend it in like the scrum, being like, oh, we can, it fits with our characters that, we can slide into these roles. I think it is there's a gap there. I think that it's a misstep, really, and it comes down to their casting in this stupid stable that, just shouldn't exist at this point. So, with you there.
No, but it was, you said, it was hard hitting. As you say, probably, were you saying it's the best strap match? I mean, I'm not coming to mind, like, the only one that comes to mind is like Triple H and The Rock, really, like on the top of my head, but
Vader and Sting.
Vader and Sting, it was a good one. It's certainly better than Rusev and John Cena. I mean, or a chain match they had, pretty much the same gimmick, like, but yeah. No, but it was
I hate the four corners gimmick stuff.
And the lights,
the lights. So glad they didn't do that.
Yeah. Oh, can I just say, no, really, what I loved about this match, the finish Ricky Starks is selling on the passing out. Oh, you believe he was getting choked? Yeah, you believe he was genuinely getting fucking choked. He might have been. Who knows?
Steve?
Yeah, it was. It was so good that. It was so good.
But that is another one where it's like, okay, now Ricky's a heel. Is that just because Punk was doing that stupid face heel thing? What do you do with Ricky now? Like, he's like, I don't think he'll be with the company. I think he's going to be joining Cody in WWE at some point. And I think all of this Punk stuff and what he said on his promo on Collision, I think it's a shoot. He's sick of starting over again and again and again.
Didn't it? The finish turns in babyface for sure. That passing out,
They need to get behind him, and he's not the only one when we go through this card where it's like, okay, you've had this moment with him, now push on, but we can talk about it as we go. Well, so what were your three from like this tail end of the card? Was it not the so you had Claudio and Wheeler versus Eddie Kingston Jabata? Actually, if you were going to say that was like a slight down note like this tail end of the card, a lot of fun, but I feel like the finish felt like it went wrong somehow. Uppercut finish there. Like
I like that match. I thought that was better than I thought. I was expecting it to be so throwaway, but I got into that because of King and Cesaro.
I'll give it 3.75, but I'd have given it that on Rampage in the main event because that's what it kind of was.
Yeah. I can see that.
And I love everyone in here too. But I didn't agree. Like, that's the one where it's like everyone's talking about JP this about being the greatest 5-match run ever. I don't know if that felt like what happens on those, Wrestle Kingdom cards where the shit World Heavyweight Tag Team title match ruins that 5-match run. Like, that was that there. It wasn't shit, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it was to the level of the rest of the cards.
No. And I would go with you 3.75 for it as well, partly because of the finish. The finish felt soft, and rather than like Claudio, I don't know, even if it was a roll up and he was pulling the tights slightly, I would have been happier with that rather than the uppercut. That was the thing I probably had a kind of most of the issue with.
Well, Kingston was going to lose to Claudio. We said on the weekend show, didn't we? Like, and this was SP3's fantasy book and not mine. But he was like, obviously we're probably building to Eddie beating Claudio in New York. So we're saving the singles match for then. They could have had a singles match here with Claudio. If Claudio was going to beat Kingston anyway, you could tell that same story they did with the Acclaimed and Swerve and Keith Lee, where he loses the first one but wins the second one. Why did this have to be a Rampage tag team match?
That's it.
Why did Willie Eaton need to be there? Why even Shibata, as much as I love him? Nothing. Yeah.
It still was like effectively a thrown together tag wasn't it? Like really, where Katsuyori Shibata's coming into this just to play off. I mean, they had Kawada over there, and he wasn't even in the front row. And even Muto turned up bloody for Payback, didn't he?
He
like,
He could have won that battle, couldn't he?
I wouldn't go with that run for it. I mean, I suppose if we're going to go on to the other match, I don't know. Do you want to do the main or do you want to do the Kenny match?
No, keep going. Because I think the next one's probably the one Matty's going to say is the match of the night.
Omega versus,
that was unbelievable.
That was fucking great. And again, that should have really been on Wembley, shouldn't it? For that one. But it was, Takeshita can just deliver in ring as well. I mean, it was actually the point of that back suplex he did where he just dropped Kenny on his head early doors was just kind of, it was terrifying, wasn't it? But Omega had someone in there who physically could completely live with him. This version of Kenny Omega who's kind of like broken down and the rest of it. I was surprised by the finish in the end in terms of him winning. I thought even the stuff with the screwdriver and the rest of it was kind of like, like I didn't necessarily mind that as much as well. But I mean, sadly for me, it made me think when he dropped the knee pad, I thought, this is all very Kota Ibushi. I thought, I don't want us to go down in that direction as well. In some ways, I want to see Takeshita now go. Don Callis goes, right, now you're going after the world champion. Like you need to do these kind of definitive things with him and extend the feud. You can extend the feud with Kenny. I see you shaking your head there, mate. You can do that, but he now has to be a substantial. Like you don't bother with Jericho and Don Callis. I just don't think he'll do it. Almost retcon that from history.
I don't think we talk about follow up. Like, it would be very AEW for Takeshi to get this big win over Kenny and for him to just never capitalize on it, never get his world title shot, show up on Rampage in 6 weeks. But we're forgetting Don Callis is there. Don Callis is not going to shut up about the fact that he pinned Kenny Omega there. Like, that's your safety net.
Twice in a week.
And I think they'll get that story over because that should mean something. And I think it will mean something, Matt, because, coming up this match, Takeshi looked every bit, we knew that going in. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world as well. We said it on the preview. I know you love this one, Matt. Like, this was probably more up your street than Danielson and Starks.
But can just say though, even for we've had that angle the other week at Jim Ross and Kenny Omega, but that was more for the 6-man. The core story these are trying to tell with this feud is brilliant. I think you've got Ken broken down, tying in with the Callis team. He's got the new Kenny Omega, a younger version, a healthier, a faster, whatever you want to say. And he's beat him twice, and it just leads. JP, I agree with what you're saying. He should be getting a shot and then go back to the Kenny, but I just don't think Khan will do that. Benno's suggestion's more likely to happen where he'll just be forgotten about. But no,
it's going to build. Up in a trio battle royal in 6 weeks.
But you blow this off a full gear. You give it the whole. Even putting Kenny, I know it might be a bit WWE, put Kenny's career on the line, get a big match where Kenny gets the win finally. But this whole story, what you're saying there, I think it's been brilliant. In the match itself, Jay, you mentioned that German suplex, the brain buster on the floor, the senton over the top to the chairs, the blue thunder off the top rope. I mean, that was insane. This is Kenny Omega, as you say. We want to see him in these matches, and he delivers all the time.
This is the Kenny we want.
Yeah.
Kenny in singles matches.
Unbelievable.
Even Sue Williams jumped in our Discord and was like, I get what you mean now, lads. He was joking, but you know what I mean?
Different level.
JP, it's a different human being when he's in these matches. I love it. Even the end with the screwdriver callbacks, obviously the turn. He done the old Berserker Undertaker where it's stuck in the middle of the ring. That visual of just seeing it, how close he was, and Kenny
nailed
shit himself.
Looked good.
It was brilliant. It was so good. And then even the end stuff. I love the end, JP, where he's given it. I thought that, the fans bought it where he kicked out of that knee and then just getting the knee pad down. Ken sold it like death. 1, 2, 3. Brilliant stuff. Honestly, fucking absolutely love this. I'd go 4.75. Could even be 5, Benno. I'm torn. I fucking loved it just to see, as you say, Kenny Omega back. And I want this to happen a full gear and we'll get another chapter to the story because I'm all in on it. Love it.
It's the Kenny we want, JP. It absolutely is. I don't think I'd go as high as you. I'd go maybe between 4.25 and 4.5. I like hedging in the middle. I need a 0.33 or something like that. I'm somewhere there, but it was high level. Maybe, to be fair, I'm probably close to 4.5. Just high level.
That's where I am.
First class athletics with a story too. unbelievable. And Takeshita got put over massively, which Kenny wanted to. It was everything we've been screaming for, JP. We wanted this match on All In for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. It was never going to be like, I'll be honest, I wanted a kind of, I would say, even a bigger Kenny match than Takeshita. But then there came a point of going, I'm all right with Takeshita. They're going to do it. And then when it was 6 man, it's like, well, no, because there's no real stakes to this. This felt like it had stakes to it because it's an important thing, because we have been trained to believe that Kenny Omega singles matches are special, and they are always good. And this was an example of that. Like I say, 4.5, like it's top quality like wrestling, and it's Kenny in a serious storyline. It just doesn't have his fucking kiddie wink mates knocking around with him, like doing insane daft shit. Keep them away from it, because they ruin these storylines, and you want it to be serious. And by the feud, it kind of, I still kind of want it with Don Callis. I do not want to see Kota Ibushi in this at all. I don't see the ghost of Kota Ibushi in it. Like,
Benno,
I really
TM Benno there.
Yeah, exactly. Very, very true on
this
that.
This is a live show if you want to hear
it. Can I just say, though, before we move on, do you think we're ever going to, can Callis bump anymore? Are we ever going to get to see that one-wing angel when he finally gets his hands on him, or is it just going to be a straight-up screwdriver or a screwdriver back, won't it? That'll be to end it back to him.
And he'll have that neck brace on longer. He'll have that neck brace on longer than Roderick Strong. Honestly.
Yeah, he will. Great stuff.
Yeah, that cut on his head just keeps getting like redder and longer. It's become a comedy bit, hasn't it? But yeah, and again, we were very critical of the build to this, weren't we, JP? Like, we loved, Takeshita going over it all in made sense, and there were little moments in the story that were good, but it did feel a bit fractured and a bit like, they missed the peak. No complaints with the match itself. Surprise, surprise with this card, and hopefully no complaints with the payoff. But we'll see. I
think Callis got derailed with the Jericho stuff. I think that was a problem. It just took him away out of it, and he didn't even need to
heal again, isn't he? Fucking.
That would be one of the first things they need to go right. Is this bloke? They need to look at his storylines at some point. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
Definitely. Very quickly before the main event, Bullet Club Gold beat FTR, probably most notable, and the Bucks most notable for the crowd response. Like I say on the weekend show, I would have preferred a more prestigious, three-way maybe with the Bullet Club lads. That could maybe have made sense, but they went with this instead. And again, this was, similar to the Blackpool Combat Club match. This was another. I'd probably go 3.75 on it, but it was utterly compelling stuff. Just to watch the crowd reaction and to watch Dax and Cash after awkwardly team with the Young Bucks, knowing the Young Bucks were trying to take a victory lap for Punk and all the cheers they were getting, knowing that Dax was real life, like seething. There was even a point when they did the BT trigger where Dax did like the tap of his hand like CM Punk on Collision. We had Cash throwing up the X, and it's still real to those lads. It was every bit real, and they were probably gutted that the crowd were. It felt to me like the crowd were actually booing them just for teaming with the Young Bucks. Like they betrayed Punk themselves in a little way. But I found that stuff absolutely fascinating. I thought Juice Robinson was great again. I thought Jay White was great again. And yeah, big win for the Guns as well. Thought overall, good bit of business. Not the most prestigious match you could book an 8-man tag, but in the end, I thought the lads delivered.
I do want to see at this point Bullet Club got a gold. I just want to see him call himself the Bang Bang Club, just because it isn't Bullet Club. But I would just want to see Jay White as like the proper going for singles, doing single stuff with Juice Robinson as his kind of like comedy sidekick, and the Guns as the tag team, because that works. Just like doing that, and I was glad that they went over on that. But yeah, where they're going to go with Bucks FTR, I assume we're going to get another match at
100%.
Possibly at this Wrestle Dream show. You could see them doing 2 out of 3 falls. You might see him try and headline it with like some sort of Iron Man match.
Iron Man match, JP. I was
something along those, a tag team Iron Man match. They haven't done that before. That's the kind of thing I could see them doing. And that'll be interesting for crowd reactions and other things there. But yeah, it was a perfectly fine match for what it was. Entertaining, but I wouldn't go berserk over it.
What do you make of it, Matt? What do you make of the Bucks kind of the response they got from the crowd and their response to it?
They were hammering it up, weren't they?
We were crystal of them before, but then what else do you expect them to do? You know what I mean?
In that environment, Got it.
With the books overall, I just hope this Punk being gone takes the fucking scowl off the faces and they start just looking motivated. Like they just, you know, they're still doing their act from 2017, just a watered down version of it. They've not really evolved since they've been in AEW, but from a look, but they just look older. That's the only difference. There's so
You know
many
what?
little things they haven't
We've
done.
got the Young Bucks
Benno.
bald and the Young Bucks hair now, haven't we? That's where we are.
I hope they get going. I hope they really like go, okay. You know, I think, was it you, JP, or was it I can't remember. I did so many podcasts like saying that like maybe they could turn and join like Bullet Club Gold. Like that would involve character development, which we've not had from them in like 4 years. That was never happening. But
Growing
maybe,
a beard's their development, isn't it? Growing a full beard.
But maybe because the cunts have won, you know, over Punk, now we'll get something, Matty. Now we'll get them, you know, doing something.
The coasting, Benno, they signed that new 4-year deal. The coasting, aren't they? You know what I mean? And as you say, with Punk on, hopefully it does. But you know what, boys? I love this match. I honestly thought this was like really good, especially like the last 5. I thought it was a good pace throughout. But that end stretch reminded me of any Platt will get on me, like PWG stuff without the high moves. It was just so fast paced, everyone coming in and out. And my favourite thing in wrestling is when Jay White goes for the fucking blade runner, because he's never hitting it that first time. How many times did he go for it? He loves them reversals, and he kept going for it. But I love the finish as well, where he did hit it, and obviously one of the guns was the legal man. And I did love, even though the book's even like a playing wrestler type thing, what like to get nailed for, is like, I was late. You know, when we saying to the FTR, I was late, you know, and even Cash at the end was like, I'm sorry. And I just love that little like realness to it kind of thing, where it's a bit wink, wink, but real at the same time. I fucking love that. And I love this match. Really did.
There we go. So yeah, that was you fun, and it was a good card placement, I thought, for it, as it led into allegedly the main event. And to be fair, the lads, we said it in the preview, didn't we, JP? Moxley and Orange Cassidy were probably going to be the story of this. In the end, I actually think it was more Danielson, and more just this like 5-match stretch in general. But Moxley and Orange Cassidy did deliver. And Moxley put over Cassidy strong. It was another one of them, despite winning. And you know, I don't know what the stick in the landing means with Orange Cassidy after this, whether you do move him up or whatever. But as a match, I thought it was great. You know, maybe didn't 100% buy the commentary talking up the international title like it was the you know, the world heavyweight title equivalent or whatever Seth Rollins is carrying into WWE. But you could make the argument now, which is wild considering where we started with Orange Cassidy in this belt. So God bless him for this great run. And it felt almost like poetic, the right place to pay that one off, for him to be in the main event of a pay-per-view, to lose it to the other MVP of the company in Jon Moxley, and for us to all, because all great stories do have to come to an end, and for it to come to an end, and all of us to look back and appreciate, you know, what Orange Cassidy has done in this run. And you know, I think he's, you know, even his biggest doubters, I think, have turned down on him now. Like it's actually a worn-out talking point now, isn't it? Like I think everyone just agrees Orange Cassidy's great. There's maybe 1 or 2 outliers now, but like, he's been fucking fantastic, and this run summed him up.
They nailed his character. And I think this is the thing that's really connected. When I was speaking about earlier on about people that they could really go with as being unique to them, Orange Cassidy is that person. You just see the idea of like I loved the Moxley promo about him that he cut. And I thought that did as much as anything to set in my mind. I was like, this is going to be good. This idea, I don't know who you're cosplaying as. It's like, no, I'm taking you seriously. Yeah. And that's what this was. He took him seriously and had to dig deep in order to beat him. And this was something where it was like, but you also, as opposed to the Ricky Starks story, I think this had that better story of this like great run. This previously unheralded guy who'd always kind of upset the odds has become quietly like the ace. And they talk about like the 4 pillars of the company, of this person who's kind of like irreplaceable. Like, I mean, next to MJF of those younger guys, of the other sort of more unheralded guys when they initially started up, this is the guy who has stepped in and can absolutely deliver. And I even loved, like, there was the moment in the match where he puts his hands in his pockets and you think it's just going to be the soft kicks. And then he just starts laying it in. And you were just like, get in. Like, that's character progression through a match, because that's something he never would have done. But he's reached that kind of point where he's taken himself seriously for it. and this needs to be drawn. You need to go back to this. You may not go back to it straight away, but like Orange Cassidy has to be put into that top line mix because the crowder is always going to be there with him, and he is going to be unique. And he's done like kind of media and stuff for AEW, and he's very, very good at it. And it's just a completely like he can do comedy, but also at this point, it did feel incredibly dramatic. If you might think, okay, I've seen elements of these kind of matches before, I didn't care. I just didn't care. Like I thought the blade job was great that he did. Like this would be my match of the night. I'd go 4.75 on this.
Oh wow! I was about to say Chris was a bit high for me, but yeah, fair enough. Like yeah,
I loved it. I mean, and again, this is probably me stealing kind of Matty's line for it, but it just felt like a proper story. And the ending was kind of lovely in terms of the crowd serenading him and Moxley allowing that to happen as well. Like, and you think to yourself, like, that's why he's one of the MVPs. That's like kind of you speak about the people you need to keep on there, but that's why you also need to put him in single stuff. Like rather than having him doing the multi-man stuff on the side. This is because he can add so much to it. And it felt like he properly like put him over, but put him over in a main event context. Because that's right the person.
Right way to end the reset show is what I'd say, Matt.
Yeah, no, I'm with JP. This was just underneath Ken and Takeshita for me. I fucking love this. And I went into this with zero expectations because I haven't seen Cassidy's run. I'm aware of it, of course. Not the biggest Moxley guy in the world. I'm genuinely not think he's overrated. Comes into this, and as JP said, I knew the story.
Bombs today, isn't he? Just sneaking these in, JP, just under the wire.
No,
Moxley's crap too.
I didn't say he's crap. I say overrated, but it's like, and I got the story straight away, and it was honestly, I was glued to this. Like, obviously, I like Omega and stuff, so I'm invested. That I was glued to this match, JP. It was fucking brilliant. And Benno, this is a far cry from 4 years ago with Orange Cassidy going up against Brian Alvarez at 5 a.m. in the morning. He's main event of the pay-per-view here. And honestly, it was refreshing, even JP, even little story bits and lore, whatever we call it these days, what I'm getting painted as. Moxley didn't bleed. Cassidy's the guy who bled in this. For once, he actually didn't bleed, and he's won the match. You know what I mean? And as you say there, like, it was at the end, Moxley acknowledging that it took everything he had to beat Orange Cassidy, and he was giving him basically, without giving him a handshake and a hug, he kept looking back on the ramp, didn't he? He didn't take his eyes off, and it was just like, you tough motherfucker, I've had to give you my everything here. And even Cassidy at the end, like getting up and, you know, having that little bit of standing ovation and stuff like that. Honestly, this was, and you've got to move him on now. This can't be another Wardlow for me. I waxed about Wardlow at the time. You've got to move. Cassidy can't be Benno in a battle royal, or he genuinely can't be in a throwaway tag. You've got to push him on now to bigger things, because this is his moment. He's always liked him, and he's always been behind him. You've got to go fully with him because the fans fucking love him as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't speak high enough of this for something I had zero expectations in. Honestly,
CM Punk's selling point is always him being this kind of counterculture figure and something completely different from what we expect from a wrestler. That's what Orange Cassidy is. And I know he's not the same, obviously, but you have something here, and he is massively over to that crowd and has that kind of the snarky people in the back like ourselves. We also really like him and enjoy him because we get it. It's like, no, it works. He is a great wrestler. He just fucks with their heads. That's the whole thing that he does. He just knows how to fuck with their heads. But he can also be sort of violent and nasty and everything else. And yeah, it's just, again, whether this comes through on the TV or if he's just doing like stuff with best friends that's kind of inconsequential bullshit. I don't know if you're on mute, Benno. Oh, can't hear you, mate.
You're mute, Benno.
Oh, sorry, I was making an amazing point.
He's animated. He's animated.
This is the thing about the booking, like why the booking's important. No, it is though, because it's like, yes, it's all well and good. These three, I think we're actually in different places with the three matches. I was closer to 4.25 on this one. You've taught me to a 4.5, I think, with your praise. But like, it's not, wrestling's not just about good matches. They're very, 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 very important, and we all love them. But like, That's why booking's important. It's the follow-up now. It's where, it's the booking of Orange Cassidy at this point deserves praise, and we've given it, I think, the right praise that it deserves. But you want to see Orange Cassidy push on. You want to see Ricky Stark push on. You want to see Takeshita be solidified as an upper mid-card heel and move up that AEW depth chart. That's now how you take the momentum from these 3 big matches on this show and push on. It's basic booking 101 that we are still all a little bit scared AEW won't do. And that's where I think the good faith criticism kind of comes from. But like, that's how they close the show. I mean, we can talk about like the undercard as like a job lot. I don't know where you guys want to start. You want to start with the Samoa Joe and MJF antics across those 2 matches? Do we start with CJ Perry turning up match? Do we start with Hangman Adam Page winning the prestigious?
I want you to wax lyrical on that, Benno, please. Please give your thoughts on that, please. I've been waiting for it. Come on, give us them, JP. We'll sit back. Give us them.
I think I'm worn out on this because this is
Benno on this.
Because don't me and JP get painted as like, pro CM Punk? We hate the Elite. We've got this, parasocial issue with those lads in the opposite way to the people who love every little thing they do. I think Hangman Page is one of the 4 most important wrestlers in this company. Like, I can't say that enough. So any criticism that comes with me with Hangman Page, believe me, that's my starting position. Me and Steph did we're going to do a podcast about it. I think we've decided at some point, an AEW depth chart. And fuck me, was it hard to be like, well, who are the main eventers in AEW? We've lost one now. So it's basically Jericho, Kenny, Mox, maybe Danielson, and supposedly Hangman Page. But that lad, remember Revolution? Remember how red hot he felt coming off that Moxley match? Remember how that felt like the end of an amazing chapter that had been earned, and he had this amazing fucking scalp, and it was like, wow, we've done it. Hangman Page is now back to the level he should have been as world champion, and he's at that tippy top of AEW. It's become a meme, but it's absolutely true. The lad's had 1 singles match since then. That was fucking February, March. That's when Revolution was. It was early March. Look where we are now. It's fucking September. And they gave him a singles match on Rampage and he won this Battle Royal. That's booking malpractice. He should be. Remember the thing in WWE? I'm not using this as a positive about Vince McMahon, but there was a thing with Vince where, I remember it being a big thing that Bryan Danielson, amongst the Yes movement, had made it onto Vince's little short list of the 4 or 5 wrestlers where every week you get to TV and go, okay, but what are we doing with him? What are we doing with John Cena? What are we doing with CM Punk? What are we doing with Bryan Danielson? There's wrestlers who should be at that level in your wrestling company. Hangman Page should be on that list. And somehow we've let that slip since Revolution. And yes, he was in the background of the Elite BCC feud. Yes, every now and again he turns up backstage and cuts a really shitty program that last time, the fucking ambulance one. But yeah, he's involved in that. Yeah, he got to be in a fucking trios match at All In and got the least pop other than Kota Ibushi of anybody out there. Hangman Page is above that. Hangman Page is the main character of your promotion. He's won this Battle Royal. There's a positive, despite the fucking scrubs he beat and shouldn't have been anywhere near in this on the fucking pre-show. But move forward now. Every week on Dynamite, Tony Khan should be like, what have we got for Hangman Page this week? How do we keep that momentum going? How many times do we say, JP, momentum, fucking hard to get, easy to lose? They lost that Hangman momentum completely so easily back in March. It's ridiculous.
And they tried at the beginning, but he was injured at that point in time. They haven't got the excuse this time for it as well. I'm with you. It's just sort of
Evil Uno. The chat have just reminded me. He lost in a multi-man on Rampage to Evil Uno to set up a fucking All-In match that didn't even end up happening.
Oh, it's
booking malpractice.
Yeah, he's exactly booking malpractice for it as well. He should be and I know it's not the direction they're going to be doing with MJF, obviously, but he should be as a challenger to him. If we're talking about, okay, have him as a challenger going into this Wrestle Dream show, or even Full Gear afterwards, which is nominally the show named after him, isn't it? So it is they're the directions that you can do with him. Because this is just an absolute waste of time for it as well. Rather like the Ring of Honor tag match. I know you're going to mention that, between those two.
Yeah, I missed MJF from my list of tippy top main events. Adam Cole's above Hangman Page in the pecking order right now, and he's earned it too, hasn't he? Yeah, let's go there next. Word. You take over. I talked enough. Did they give you what you wanted, Matt? Did you get what you wanted?
Benno, I want that clip and sent to me personally, please. I fucking love that.
My thoughts are these. I mean, I didn't really care for the tag match. I was just waiting for the bit where they won.
Nothing happened really, did it? It was just a match, wasn't it?
Like,
I mean, I know we get the angle with Joe after, but like, why did it have to happen? Why do we have to get the Dark Horse? Oh, no, I'm going again. Why the Dark Horse? You know what I remember watching this? Sorry, I'll let you talk. You know what I remember watching this, Matt? Like, I was mad enough that this match existed. Like, listen to the weekend show, I was fuming that the Dark Order got this spot. I'd just forgotten they were heels. Like, it'd be bad enough if they were baby faces. MJF had them call to sell for them and give them heat. These heels with fucking evil Uno on the outside putting the boot in. These shouldn't be. If I was fucking Tony Khan, I'd have walked out like fucking Vince during that Rhino Tajiri match at the house show, or like Antonio Inoki when fucking Luke Gallows was stinking it up and whatever it was. Like I'd have just given them the hook and go, lad, you're sacked now. Actually, just go, you're done. Don't even have a roster spot. Never mind a fucking pay-per-view slot against the two most over wrestlers in the company for no purpose. No story was furthered. MJF had a fake injury angle and they got a pop for it. The story happened after the match. This match didn't need to exist. I still don't understand why it existed. Why?
I don't understand why it existed at all. I mean, the thing that I would go for is the dog's trying to get out of the room. Is I would say that like him versus MJF versus Samoa Joe is like a kind of nice distraction from it. I'm kind of all right with that necessarily if it's short term.
Joe's reward for being the adult in the room.
Basically,
that's what it is, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the match was Shane. I don't mind Shane Taylor. Like I say, I was thinking to myself watching this match, going, "Christ, Keith Lee's at that point where you could just reteam them, couldn't you? In their tag team, they used to be in Ring of Honor, and it'd probably be like absolutely fine, which is more a damning indictment of what they've done with Keith Lee, which is nothing. And the match itself was short enough and fine. And as a feud, I'm all right for them to go in that direction. Just the tag match, I was just like, just waiting for it to end because I just didn't give a shit. Couldn't give a shit.
It should have been, if we're talking booking, it should have been the Kingdom. I know that's not lighting everyone's, juices on fire, but it makes sense. It totally makes sense.
Oh, just an over tag team. How about Jay White and Juice Robinson? They're over heels. That would make sense.
Lucha Brothers.
You know, the Guns could have been in a three-way with FTR in the books. Like, done. Sorted. Anyway, sorry. Joe Shane Taylor was a disservice to Shane Taylor, though. I felt bad for him. He's on Twitter now, defending himself against knobheads, going, well, I've earned this spot type of thing. It's not his fault that they put him on this pay-per-view ice cold. Like, and of course, the match was not going to get over, but they had a fun, match for what it was. It was an uphill battle, wasn't it? It was an ROH singles match coming after the ROH tag team title match.
It's the
need to get that TV belt off Joe as well, because it's just he has a belt to carry around with him, but he defends it.
Probably should have been punched, shouldn't he? Now we know that. Now we know everything. Yeah, he probably should have won it all.
But he also loses to people as well at the same time while being Ring of Honor champion, but it's never something he ends up defending. It's like, okay.
Punk wasn't interested.
If there's a way of getting that off him, that would be a direction I would go in. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm all right with him getting a feud, because if he goes in there with like MJF kind of shitting himself about facing Samoa Joe and Adam Cole trying to talk him up, I suppose you can get some funny skits for the kind of humor that they've been doing, or Samoa Joe gets to act like a killer, which has worked in recent weeks. And at least get that mileage out.
JP.
Yeah,
and MJF can be all like climb for him or do it the other way around, where he, stuff like that. But what did you think on the callback of the shove from the NXT walkout with the MJF and Joe?
Very MJF, isn't it?
Yeah, very MJF at the minute. Yeah, he's loving that.
Loves a bit of black and gold.
He does. He fucking loves it.
No, it's a good excuse to do a little mini program to get you through the New York TV show. I'm fine with it. And I gotta say though, the fact that they did the guillotine choke wasn't lost at Beth. Like, of course they did. Like, fucking like we got to play off that stuff, haven't we? Of course we have. What else was on this undercard?
Plenty of meat.
Meat. That's where we should go next. Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs. Screamed you too, especially you, JP.
I felt weird about it because the crowd hijacked it a bit too much.
I agree.
That's where I am. I thought this was fine as a match, like generally, and there were, you know, the amount of times that Miro has wrestled is kind of comical. They were talking about, was it 3 times that he's like 6 times in 2 years, 3 in each of the years, which is just ridiculous when you think to it. I didn't like the CJ Perry stuff afterwards. I mean, yeah, he got a pop and the rest of it, but I just thought this was very, very, very weird, like, for that as well.
It was weird, yeah. It wasn't the way to do, because I will defend CJ Perry. Like, I think as Lana, I thought she was fantastic in the Rusev act. I think she doesn't get the credit she deserves for how good she was, because they tried to make her a wrestler. That was terrible. And then they tried to do the split up thing. That was terrible. But at its core as a package, they were unbelievable together.
Yeah.
And it should be a place that they get to. But I just expected, like, on one of Miro's 10 comebacks, at some point, like, she just would have been behind him. It would have been like, oh, and here's my God, or however they would have got to it, you know what I mean? Here's my flexible wife. And she'd have come out. I wouldn't have had her coming out with a steel chair. This was very Russo as well. We sure he's a backstage there.
I'm sure he's giving tips, you know, Ben. I've said it for months and years. I've said it. I have.
What we do? Because it undermined the big beefy lads having a fucking scrap, which was great, and like that didn't need that. Like that wasn't the place to do this. As much as I don't mind it as a destination, because I do think she's got something to offer and she'll have value.
But I agree with JP. It got a bit too much, the hijacking. It started off as a nice little bit of, and then they were taking the piss out of them. I thought in the end, they were genuinely taking the piss out of the lads, and they were trying to have a good match, which they did have a good little scrap. But yeah, with Lana, CJ Perry, I don't know what they're going to do. He's denounced it, hasn't he, if we're talking storyline? So has she got
stories, mate.
Yeah, it is. So I don't know what's going to go on.
And flexible, according to the video, you know.
But yeah, it with the chair, I agree with that. Didn't need to happen, did it? That just did not need to happen. So, but yeah, hopefully they can get their magic back, Benno. And so you're trying to tell me you weren't a fan of Lana and Dolph Ziggler as an item, no? In the show, remember that?
No.
Oh yeah.
No idea until he'd mentioned it just then.
I thought so, boys.
We all remember the tank, and that's about it.
Luchasaurus, Benno?
Yeah, I think it was pretty well done. I'm surprised Darby did the match. I thought they were going to do a late switch with Nick Wayne. I honestly did have a moment. He heart skipped a beat when they were beating down Darby after the match, and we were waiting for a save, and it was just a parade of jobbers. I honestly thought on this day it's coming.
Oh, it's coming soon though, Benno. Have you fully accepted that it's coming?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I would guess he's going to come and like Sting will just disappear off TV for a while, and he'll save Darby. I think that's maybe how and then at some point Edge and Christian reunite, because that's the other problem with bringing Edge in. You've got to turn Christian, and Christian's been incredible as a heel. I don't want to do that yet. So I think that's what they're going to do. Maybe New York, maybe. Can
I just mention about Luchasaurus? Like I haven't seen his act properly. He genuinely is just Kane, though. He's got Kane's music, and he's hitting these tombstones. I was like, is that Kane's music when it first kicks in? Yeah, I was like, what? And they used the 2 tombstones and that, and the choke slam. I was like, yeah, very, very weird. But yeah, we'll see what we do with Darby Allin next, Benno. He's one of yours. Like, he is good, Darby Allin. Like, he is very good.
Have we got this far down the line without talking about Rodzilla being on the show? It was on the picture. The best part of that, Matt, and the only notable part of that was when he did the guitar shot and they just refused to leave the ring.
Billy Gunn had to have a word, didn't he? Billy Gunn had to get him out.
Was like, get out. And he didn't. He just stood there. He's like, I'm Dennis Rodman, basically. I'm not leaving. So Aubrey
in front of the ref.
Luckily, Aubrey hasn't got much credibility anyway, and she's very good at pretending that she doesn't see things. Just have to count like he wasn't there.
And I'll ignore all the guitar paraphernalia on the floor as well.
And yeah, outside that, the only other stuff's the women's matches. I haven't left it last to be, negative of the women's division. I just don't think either were particularly notable. No. Anything to say about what we got? Like Chris Statlander and Ruby Soho. I think Chris Statlander struggled to gain any of the momentum she had before her injury. It was fine. I was just looking at her going, why is Saraya not in the match? She's going to
the outcast story in it. It's like Tony Storm's is she fully left now? And
looks like
I do like Tony Storm's fucking new character though. I've got to say that every time I'm on. I think she's been hilarious. Really good stuff.
And yeah, the other women's match was on the pre-show, wasn't it? It was the another 6-woman tag, which the big fans are doing right now.
Yeah, they just do that every week on TV. So it was just interesting to see Athena out there and go, there's someone they could use, but.
Liam's cracked me up there, sorry, in the chat.
Yeah, toughest match of the weekend. Godzilla be the hard. You know, he wanted to wear full NWO gear, and somebody had to tell him why he wasn't allowed. I also found out, I actually don't think Purple-Aki's dead based on the weekend show. So good news, folks. I think that was a myth. So
better not be using that name then, in case he hears this.
Well, on the week, that's why I bring it up on the weekend show. I wasn't sure whether to call it Rodzilla or R.I.P. Aki, but you know, Rodzilla was the right choice. So it was good to of the 2 breaking news items we got on the weekend show. One of them
working his own angles now, isn't he, old Aki?
That's it. Well, all in all, great cracking pay-per-view.
Oh yeah,
papers over the cracks. But
yes,
all of the issues still exist. I think it's funny. Most of the podcasts I've listened to this week are making points. I know we like slapping ourselves on the back. Points we were making 6 weeks ago. Yeah. The build was shit, but the match was good. The matches were good. 2 things can be true. I've heard that statement on like 3 of like my 4 favorite podcasts, like over the last couple of days, I think. And we were shouting it about All In, weren't we? And All Out ended up being an even bigger example of it, JP.
Yeah, it is. But they need to learn the lessons of like, okay, now we've got the locker room united. What is the direction they're going in? Because they're just winging it at this point. And there has to be a point where someone has to have a word going, no, we need to.
What do you make of the buys? Do you make of it doing like they're doing a victory lap on it? Because it looks like All In's close to 200,000, but All Out is close to 100,000. And it's like, well, that's fine because it was a week later. It's like, again, you chose that, and All Out was one of your biggest brands. Like, should you be happy with that? Like,
and the gate is low.
That's the pay-per-view buys. That's another point. Pay-per-view buys aren't based on the good matches. You don't know whether the matches are going to be good when they buy the pay-per-view. You buy the pay-per-view because of the stories, the stakes, and the build. And you know, obviously, with a week to do it, there was no build, and even then, I think it failed the test of what you could have done in a week.
I think so. I think if you look at both business metrics, you look at that, it's like, well, that's half of what it was the week before, which isn't like, and trying to combine them is just like, this is not WrestleMania night 1 and 2. You weren't building them as a package. You weren't selling them as a package. You were selling them individually, so you have to treat them as 2 individual shows. And the other one doing like 800,000 at the gate, which if you consider that's a very expensive arena to run, and the rest of it, it's not going to be as profitable, certainly nowhere near as to what All In was, and like, you know, how they should take it. I mean, that's the thing with this. Do they heed the warning signs, or do they just go, now we're sorted? The problem in all of this is CM Punk, because AEW's problems do not begin and end with him. There are other issues going on there, particularly the creative side, the organization of the company, people's roles within the company. There's all of these things they need to get sorted out, and they need to get back on track with it, because it's a brutal business. And if the TV doesn't pick up on this stuff, then it's going to be back to the same. Okay, now we're rushing to Arthur Ashe, and then we've got a pay-per-view after that, and we've got the same situation again in about 3 weeks' time, 2 weeks' time. Even that's mental.
It's mad, because it was a pay-per-view with, you know, a middling build with a lack of like main event talent on it. They're over-delivered in the end. But enough about Payback, which you're about to talk about. Matty, if you want an example of that, here you go.
No, we said on the weekend show.
They got away with one, because WWE would have been getting slated for this if the headline wasn't what AEW were doing. I was really disappointed with the Payback build, and I mean, the show itself had good matches on it. Like, and there's stuff we can talk about in a minute, but it really did feel like a break from this really good tradition I think WWE have given us this year. And that, like, despite being Man and JP, harsh critics of the week-to-week Matty, we argue about it all the time. I think every time we've sat here on the show and talked about the pay-per-view this year, we've gone, oh, that was good. Or even if it wasn't good, that felt special because it was in Puerto Rico, it was in the UK, it was something different. This felt like a return to the old WWE in some ways. There were matches that are exceptions to that and kind of saved them in a few ways, but overwhelmingly, felt like this was a bit of a dud on the calendar, and kind of got lost in the news cycle too.
It was, I said on the weekend show, I expected this to be a B pay-per-view. Was hoping to be, you know, exceed expectations, but it was a typical old school B pay-per-view with 2 really good matches though. I think there was 2 really good 4+ star matches, but the rest were just like you're watching a Raw or watching a SmackDown. There was nothing to them really, and Yeah. So yeah, it broke the mold, as you say there. But the only thing is, we've got another couple in between before Survivor Series. So let's hope.
Do we? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've got Fastlane and Saudi Arabia before Survivor Series.
Isn't Fastlane usually in like February?
They swapped it around. It's October.
Is it not the Fastlane to WrestleMania? Is that not the?
No, they don't usually. It was
Elimination Chamber now.
It was. What was it? Yeah, Reigns and Sami Zayn. Was that Elimination Chamber? That wasn't it? The event that in Montreal was that? Yeah. So they swapped it round. So yeah, it's there's a couple more. So hopefully, I don't know if Roman's coming back. If Cena's actually going to fight on these. We'll have to
I just don't think we gave AEW grief for not having a proper main event on that pay-per-view and not like just putting MJF in a serious match or whatever. I don't think, is there an excuse for, Roman's not here, but like to just do an angle with Cody? Like, you'd surely at that point be like, all hands on deck, we need to have a Cody match on this show to make up for the fact that there wasn't really a main event here. Like, it didn't have the issues that AEW had, and yet it was the same result.
Yeah. This was it felt like they were testing the limits of what are they going to be able to do without Cody and without Roman. So I suppose in terms of a bizarre experiment they played themselves, they'll go, well, we sold out Pittsburgh and the rest of it. But I watched 2 matches from this. I watched the steel cage match and I watched the street fight that Matty recommended. And I tried to watch some of Rollins Nakamura and I was just bored. And I just went, I'm imagining that the rest of the card was kind of like that pretty much. I mean, because I thought like you say, the cage match was done very, very well. Yeah. Like I thought that was very good and a sort of a good way to open up the show and a very sort of like definitive win and everything else. And I was fine with that. And I'm hoping that Zoe Stark effectively just takes the place of Trish Stratus and put her properly into the mix because she seems to be doing like a really good job and everything else. And the street fight was very much just a street fight. I was more surprised to see Kevin Owens bleed in that way.
He tried the best not to focus in, didn't he? But they couldn't be avoided sometimes.
He nearly killed himself with that New Jack dive.
That swanton was insane, wasn't it?
It nearly missed him, didn't he, for that? But there was enough kind of fun moments, and then the Judgment Day have become a hot act, almost despite its leader. But with Damian Priest, Dominic Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley, they've got these 3 really good cores to it, and I'd like to see him go full board in with Damian Priest at some point. So I thought those 2 matches were good, but the other stuff just had zero appeal to it, and it felt like they were testing the water of what do we do without these guys in these kind of roles. And you realize actually the depth, particularly when it comes to main event heels and everything else. And I watched the Chad Gable versus Gunter match, which was really good, really fun. Okay. Like his daughter crying in the end of it. It's like, Jesus Christ, that really
next pay-per-view that definitely got to be.
That has to be something. If you're going to have someone end his reign, kind of should go back to this. Like that would be the direction I'd go in. And I'd make sure that Gable's got his family in again. So you can have him hugging,
get them in the ring, and
because but there was like the lack of someone like that, or even the lack of like in recent months, like a Sheamus, even like you were missing people like that. It was like very much LA Knight doing LA Knight style stuff, and then having to do the T stuff. But it felt like a very sort of lazy event.
Even Jey Uso, we always have like fun and games, but now he's on Raw now. JP, he'll be involved. He's over. No matter what it is, he's over with the fans with his new like bouncing with the fans. It's a great visual, and he's over. So we can be putting matches now. Him and Sammy had the big reuniting on Raw, didn't they? Big hug and that. So there's stuff you can do with them and Cody and stuff like that on Raw. Or I don't know if he's going to SmackDown for the trade off for Jey Uso. I don't know what's going on. But if we're getting back to the cage match, I thought, honestly, on the sly, I've always thought this feud's all right. It's been around longer than it should have been, JP. But this match was unbelievable, I thought. Considering I just thought it'd be a standard, boring cage match. I'm not the biggest fan of cage matches in general anyway. But I thought this was brilliant, the way they done it. Like, even the callbacks to the Widow's Peak and the Twist of Fate for the first women's cage match with Lita and Victoria. I loved all stuff like that. Trish hanging upside down, I was shit myself thinking, if her foot just
Steph screamed.
Benno, genuinely. What if it was just a shoe was slippy or there was a bit of wet on the cage? Madness. absolutely madness. But even the end stuff with the, I haven't seen it in years, the old, well, I've watched the cage match for a while, the old Michael Hayes, Kerry Von Erich spot, JP, in every cage match. We've seen that into the manhandle slam off the top, but even the bulldog off the top, superplex, done the Hogan Bossman superplex.
Yeah.
Honestly, hats off to these two women, because I thought it was fucking brilliant, this match. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really well done. It was maybe lacking a little bit in the maybe violence stake a little bit for me. And you got that later, so there's at least that. But although it was really creative, and I've been down on this Trish run, I still don't really understand what it achieves. Like, it's just strange that they've got like this veteran back who like everyone just wants to give. Oh, isn't it great to see Trish pops and she's a heel? Like, it's just the strangest dynamic, isn't it? But this is the best I've seen her look since she's come back, and this is like. This lived up to the legend of like, because it's kind of a given. It's like, oh, but back in the day, Trish was the good one. You actually saw that here. It was like, okay, like this was her coming up to the level, I think, of like the more modern WWE women stuff. And
but she was
memorable spots, good stuff.
She was wound up as well, because the footage, you see where she went up to the guy in the crowd who was like, Becky's gonna, and she like, shut the fuck up. So you could tell she was ready to deliver, like full of it, like loving it. But even that street fight, like, to be honest, I got a great pop in the building. Didn't love like the hockey. It was a bit too hokey for me.
Like, where did we get that from? I was actually flying around.
Yeah, it was a bit too
expensive.
Much.
Those jerseys, it's like $100 each. Like, fucking leaving two
Paul
of
got
them
the feed wrong, didn't he? And Graves had to correct him. But he didn't call them the Penguins, did he? He called them the Steelers, I think. I was like, wrong sport, mate. Even I know that. I'm not even American. Come on.
But like what we've kind of talked about, that swanton was insane by Kevin Owens. The snap, and like as you say, just about got him. But
landed on his tailbone, mate. He literally landed on his ass. He could have really seriously hurt himself. Like,
he's always been up for a bump. Kevin Owens
in this one, Owens, I thought, like the blood, like, and that was a surprise. I know they wiped it away eventually, but they kind of let it go. Like, he pretty much was like an old school blade job, wasn't it? It felt very like he was channeling a New Jack in this match. It felt very ECW, just like wild, doing a load of shit that you wouldn't.
Terry Funk, wearing it, he had the t-shirt, so I think he was trying to pay tribute as well to the Funker. But
more so that,
Terry Funk never did a fucking swanton off from the crowd and onto a table.
He done a few moonsaults, JP. Even Foley.
If he made it to AEW, he probably would have. If he did Canadian Destroyers, wouldn't he? Like,
But I think I said on the pre-show, JP, if there was one outsider that was going to win, on the weekend show, it was the Judgment Day winning the tag belts, and it just fits the story of can they coexist and stuff like that, and drag it out and see who's going to turn on who. But yeah, as you say, they've earned it though, JP. People like, well, myself included, go on about the bloodline. They've been a good act on Raw for a long time now, and they've got all the belts, briefcase. Let's see where they go, and maybe a War Games, a Survivor Series with Jay, Sammy, Kevin, Cody, something like that. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll have to. Only time will tell. But the rest on the show, LA Knight, he was over, but 15
minutes too long.
Did it have to go 15 minutes?
But if it was 15 minutes, it was still 15 too long.
It was no need to be that long. And even with Cena in there trying to give him his endorsement, that felt a bit like rushed and a bit like unnecessary, But I do like, with LA Knight though, I do like the fact of like, and I'm big on this, that like everyone's glad of the opportunity, and even the characters are glad to be there. No, he's like, fuck this, I own this, you know what I mean? He doesn't bow down to, do you know what I mean? And to the fans, even, he just gives them a look, like a Steve would. He doesn't bow down to them in a way, which I like. But the rest, Theory and Ray, was a SmackDown match at best.
It wasn't even that good, mate. How can you have 15 minutes with Rey Mysterio and deliver that?
He'd give up on Theory. You can tell, like, he's
giving up on himself.
Yeah,
he's below bang average.
I think Grayson Waller's even gone up above him in, like, the stakes are like heel wise and stuff like that on the mic and stuff, which I don't know what says about him. But Rhea and Raquel, I built it up on the weekend show. Bit of a letdown, they tried to have a go and longer with Rhea matches, but it still needed Dominic to come in and just and give the little distraction and stuff like that. But I think they're going for the rematch as well, so I don't know about that one. But the main event, JP, like, it was always going to be, Benno, I'm going to use your line, it was a 3.25. We knew what it'd be like, and good to see the Great Britain at ringside, to be fair. And they've had a go at Nakamura, but no one was buying him winning. That was the main thing with this match.
Aren't you?
Yeah, no, no one in the world thought he was going to win this match, and that was the main problem with it. Yeah. But they're looking at a rematch with them, aren't they? Going off Raw where they had a bit of a pull-up.
Well, no, Nakamura said he didn't want the belt. He was like, "No, thanks, I'm all right."
Oh, he just wanted to end him, didn't he? In the story, but yeah, I don't know. As you say, though, JP, you've got to put Gunther and Gable at this next pay-per-view and give it an Iron Man match, a 2 out of 3.
That Raw match was really strong. I wouldn't go as crazy as some were going on it. It was like a nice 3.75 star Raw match, I thought. But like a quality above the normal.
The chemistry's there, Benno.
Yeah.
The 5-minute challenge, when it kicked this off about a month ago, I was waxing about it. As you say, maybe people are getting over the top because, it's just the chemistry though. But if they're given 20 plus minutes on pay-per-view, it could be a match of the year. It genuinely could be if they get left to their own devices and deliver a match. Fucking great chemistry, these two. Brilliant.
Okay. And not even a bloodline argument we could have, Matt.
Well, Jay, you show's back then on. I was on Raw, prolonging the story until him and Jimmy at WrestleMania. That's what we're doing.
Well, him and Sammy are mates again now because Trigger's broom, what are you going to do? I'm not getting
sense at all.
He just tried to murder him. So, we're all good. Now we're on the same
side. We're waiting for the big fella to come back so we can have the proper debate when Roman comes back in about what? November, December?
We'll get there, but I do think Cody's. I think that's going to be the thing. He's going to be on SmackDown to build.
I think that's what it'll be.
In a match, yeah. I think that's going to be what the trade turns out to be. Yeah. Maybe like temporarily. You know what I mean?
That's Saudi then. That'll be Saudi, surely, Cena and Cody more than Fastlane, won't it? Do you think?
Yeah.
Given like
that's sad.
Yeah. That's what it'll be. But there's a lot of pay-per-view time and TV time before we get Philip Survivor Series, Benno. So.
And I look forward to it all. On that note, unless we got more to say on WWE, while we were watching that, what were you up to this week, JP? Any other odds and ends you want to mention?
There is a match I'd love to mention on here. And again, I won't bang on too much about this, but Go Shiozaki versus Keno, the N1 victory final. I watched the lick of the N1 victory. Just the timing of it was just awful, and it was another bloody tournament. But this was fucking cracking. This was just, and they've got good chemistry. They just beat the shit out of each other. Like properly felt like bullets, some of the kicks in this as well. And Go Shiozaki won, which is what I thought would happen because I just put the title back on him. It's the first time I've seen him without straps on his shoulders. Put it that way. I was like, oh, wow. And he's been wrestling loads in this tournament. But it was just what you'd expect from a Noah main event in there. They were just going out there. Like, it was 30 minutes. It didn't really feel like that. I was like, oh, it just got completely sucked into it as well. They were just doing like kind of kick/chop exchanges with each other as well in there. But it was, absolutely cracking. Really great finishing stretch. Highly, highly recommend that from that. There was the only other notable thing really on that card was the fact, I mean, he's going to challenge Jake Lee at the end of the month. You'd hope to God he wins. Psycho Clown turned up to challenge El Hijo to Dr. Wagner Jr., which feels like you'd want to be seeing that in AAA as much as anything. And El Hijo's been like quite a staple of Noah. So you wonder, like, this is a kind of a big enough deal to bring in someone like that, like Psycho Clown. Because as we know in AAA, he's like the man. He's a big star. Well, he's below Vikingo, but like he is one of the kind of staples. Certainly when it comes to anything hair and mask related, you always assume he's not that far behind. So I'd highly recommend that. And then I had Fury Road on. Put it that way.
I was going to ask you, JP, have you seen the clip of the Weapons of Mass Destruction match?
I did.
The fire. It's amazing, that clip.
Is that when he's put his head in the box? Well, a lot of it was Ricky Shane Page trying to cut off his feet to points where I felt uncomfortable.
I need to watch this now.
I was like, this is quite hurting. They also had a Kiss My Foot match, which ended with Mance Warner just biting MSL's feet, which is just can only be described as a horrible thing to see on your TV screen. But like I will
like some of the
say,
stories he'd tell on the old podcast. But anyway.
They've got Minoru Suzuki coming in. They're doing these shows like every month. He's at Slaughterhouse. They've got Serena De La Renta. She's back in there.
She's back. Yes, I see that. She's back. Yeah.
I thought about it
there as well.
Fucking years.
I know.
Back now. She's back.
But then I'd say the other thing that they're doing is really the Alex Kane push and add him in there with Willie Mack, who I've always kind of liked and is always good, like to a certain level. And I suppose in Impact, I never thought that they could have done stuff with him because he's kind of fun enough to watch. But I don't know whether or not if they just sort of look at him and think, he doesn't really seem like he's going to be all that great. But I thought this was actually kind of all right. I mean, he went 18 minutes. Basically, he's Taz, Alex Kane. He's just Taz, and then he's got a load of people at ringside chatting Bomber, which is kind of like Taz used to have an entourage coming out. It's basically the same. And I'm fine with that because there's been enough time and distance since Taz was wrestling. He's not a big bloke, Alex Kane. He's got like a massive bloke, Mr. Thomas, as his sidekick out there, as well as like Faye Jackson is there as well. And the crowd are into it. And you just think, well, that's the thing that MLW have always been good at, is who is their guy who's kind of unique to them. And it was Jacob Fatu, then it was Alex Hammerstone, it was MJ, even when they had like MJF, his job was to get Richard Holiday and Alex Hammerstone up a level, which he did.
Surely. Yeah.
And they're very good at using people to build them up. And so Alex Kane is kind of like their guy. And I thought, this was, he went 18 minutes. MLW main events are never going to be great necessarily in ring, but I'd go 3.5 for it. I thought it was fine. He's a better wrestler than Alex Hammerstone. And I thought this was okay. Sadly, no donking on there as well. But so they're the things that I saw. I tried to watch some of the Stardom show. It just didn't seem like it was necessarily up to snuff. So I just thought I couldn't do it. And I didn't manage to fit in the All Japan main event I thought I would. But I feel like I say that most weeks because I do actually want to see at some point this.
There was a lot going on this week.
This Yuma Aoyagi title run that's going on there. But there was a load of stuff on this week. So that's like my wrap up. So if there's one thing to take away from it, watch the N1 victory final.
Brilliant. And else you've been watching, Matt?
No, I just want to watch. What's that Fury Road on, JP? Is that on YouTube or?
It's on the JP drive, mate.
Get
everything else.
That's what it's on.
Always legend, JP. Thank you. I'll be watching that definitely this week. Been watching all the wrestling, Benno, at all, really. Just
Dark Side of the Ring's finished, so with the it's not
we can watch that Netflix thing with Al Snow, can't we?
Oh
my God. The legend.
Wrestling legend Al Snow.
Jesus Christ. Well, yes, on that note, we're all going to have a lot of homework to do this week. We're watching the FWA ROH show. So, looking forward to watching that this week for JP's Dealer's Choice. I imagine we'll be recording that at the weekend. So, you got that to look forward to. If you haven't listened back, obviously our audio from our live show in Harrow is up as well. But, anything else to plug? You up to much else, Matty? There'll be an episode of Time coming soon as well. I know you've been in early discussions with Liam about the next episode, but thinking first week or so in October, I think that'll be coming.
We're all on, but he should have sent the list out by this time this week. We've got the list together, and it's I've had a sneak preview of it, JP. It's looking very. He said it was the hardest one to get together this time. But there's some good stuff on there.
Have you revealed what it's going to be, or are we going to wait? We don't know. I don't think
we'll reveal that in maybe a week or so time, or 2 weeks. Okay. So, but it's looking good, and I've just to put the shit right up you, Benno, especially. I've got Connor curating the list for my choice of Dealer's Choice, so just let you sit on that one.
Great, can't wait. Look, Steve was a great podcast, so as much as I take the piss, I'll trust you, mate. I'm sure it'll be a great podcast. That's all. Content game at the end of the day. As long as the podcast is good, and they all were last time, they will be again. I'm excited of it. Brilliant. Okay, on that note, anything else to plug, JP? Anything else to mention?
No, that's it. Everything else, I'd say, Dealer's Choice month. Like you mentioned earlier on, but all roads lead to patreon.com/grapple, and go to the YouTube channel as well and hit subscribe if you're on there as well. I know we're going to be doing some very exciting stuff with YouTube.
Definitely, we'll be offering YouTube membership soon. As I said earlier, the Patreon price will be going on. First time in 2.5 years. But if you want to get in at the current price and lock it in, you've still got time. So you can do that. And if you're more of a YouTube-minded person, I think is Dylan Masalia in the chat, stay tuned. But even now, you can, if you've been listening to this on Spotify or elsewhere, you can watch the full episode of Spotlight without a pre-show, but the video version over on our YouTube. Usually put it up about 3 p.m. the day after. So look forward to that as well. But other than that, thank you folks for tuning in. We promise next week will hopefully be a shorter one. We've the month until CM Punk does something daft like he'll stab Colt Cabana next week.
Can he have a week off? Stay at home, Phil. Do nothing.
What a shout.
Quiet week next week, we think, but we'll see. But yeah, weekend show Friday, all the normal stuff. But yeah, on that note, thank you, live patrons, for tuning in. Thank you, YouTubers, for tuning in on the video replay, and thank you, audio listeners, for listening. But yeah, thank you to our patrons. Thanks to Carl Gack, Robert Brocky, Conor O'Loughlin, Eddie Sarburns, Chris Platt, Simon Gunn, and Simon Mulvaney, our Kings of the Mountain. And we'll catch you all again on the next one. Good night, all.
Bye.
Ta-da.
See you, folks.